Today is Thursday, July 25th, 2019. It is 5:16 p.m. Joanne, please call the roll.
Commissioner Ernst?
Here.
Commissioner Engel?
Here.
Commissioner Rowland?
Here.
Commissioner Lopez?
Here.
Commissioner Wright?
Here. We do have a change to the agenda. Number 5, the Friends of Gumbo Limbo MOU is being moved up to number 1 to accommodate Mrs. Keel. Do we have any other changes, commissioners? Hearing none. Let's go to public requests. We have moved the podium so that we get less feedback. So if you'll all please turn off your cell phones or put them on silent, that would be wonderful. And anybody who would like to comment, please step to the podium. You may give your name and your address. Welcome.
I'm not talking, I'm just turning the microphone on.
Okay.
Good evening, Michelle Peel, 7391 Northeast 8th Court. First, I'm going to wear my Friends of Gumbo Limbo hat, and I want to let everyone know that a resolution was passed at Tuesday's council meeting in support of a project that will enable us to save the tower at Gumbo Limbo and confer naming rights. And so I'm going to hate to be presumptuous, but I'm going to thank the district for cooperating also in making that happen. And I want to thank you for your support, and hopefully that MOU passes smoothly with you tonight. So thank you for your support. I'm going to take my friend's hat off and become a private citizen again. As a resident of the district, I do want to say that I'm pleased that the district is seeking ways to fund the many important projects identified by our community members through a millage rate increase. This would allow for funding of both new amenities like the golf course, but also gives you opportunity to take care of existing jewels like Gumbo Limbo, which is also important to our community. It takes considerable political courage to stand for an increase, so I applaud you for being willing to consider it as elected body. I encourage you to seek the maximum millage rate so that we don't have to continue to defer things that have already been put off for years and years. I think this can be done in a few years and then the rate reduced once these projects are completed. And I'm personally more than willing to pay the additional amount to fund these needed community assets. So thank you for working to make this happen. Thanks.
Thank you, Michelle.
May I ask? Regarding the memorandum of understanding, I think it's exceptional that the Gumbo Limbo is coordinating it and will work with the donors to do so. The only thing I would ask of you in the Gumbo Limbo family is now you have kind of a benchmark of a donation for naming rights. And as I looked at this MOU and I looked at other MOUs that were completed by the city, some of them were done without any kind of donation or anything. And so given the financial needs of moving forward on Gumbo Limbo, I would only ask that whether it's anything is going to be named in the future on Red Reef in that area, that you kind of be the guardians of bringing it to the attention of the district and that ensuring that it makes sense to you as a volunteer base, that someone just doesn't name something and walks away from it, but there is a reason and purpose and some kind of financial donation, whether it's from the friends or from the family who's involved.
Thank you. That is, we are happy to be the voice of the community in these types of situations and looking to alert the district as well as work closely with the city as the property owner. It needs to be a really nice three-way cooperation to do that. And we are in a unique position to work with special donors in the community and be their voice where we can.
I just add one comment. I'd like to reiterate what Craig said, and also comment on the fact that earlier in the year I tried to find a way to accomplished something similar, but on a much smaller scale in the cities that there was really nothing in place to do it. So I'm glad that we've got a template, a track to run on, because there are other opportunities, not only for Gumbo Limbo, but for our parks in general, where we can recognize for a donation to somebody who has a special interest in seeing some recognition be given to a member of the family or some other opportunity that might exist for veterans or the like. And I think that's a good precedent that we've set here to move forward with this MOU.
Thank you, Bob. I think we have to thank our city partners for finding a way to make this happen the way that makes sense for all of us. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Board. Tom Thayer, 4821 North Dixie Highway in Boca Raton, 33431. I would second everything that Michelle just said with regard to her areas of interest. I'm here on the golf course, as some of you might expect, and I suspect that a lot of you are as well. And after the workshop on Tuesday, I actually had some positive vibes there from a majority of the council that they would sign off on the Price Fazio design and move along with the course. But obviously that was Monday at the workshop, after the council meeting on Tuesday night, obviously that wasn't the situation. And they are set on a second-class golf course. And I don't think that's what the city of Boca Raton wants or needs or would support. So let's do it right. Let's set the millage rate, like Michelle says, for Gumbo Limbo, but for the golf course as well, and whatever else we need to do. Let's take the hit right here at this board, move on, do it without the city, except we don't want to irritate them too much, because we need some permits out of development services, and we need some connections out of municipal services. So with that in mind, let's bite the bullet. And I know you're going to take some hits politically and what have you, but we've got to be tough up here and do it right. So that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Tom. Public requests are still open.
No, you speak much better than Let's follow you.
I'm Harold Chaffee, 6200 Northwest Second Avenue, and the president of Keep Gotham Boca. I know that all of us are here for one reason. That's basically to show the beach and parks that we do support them in the decision that they have to make tonight. It is a rough decision to raise a millage rate, but it needs to be done. In the beginning, we entrusted this to the beach and parks. This is your project. It doesn't belong to the city. Because we looked at the things that you have done in the city. Everything that's remarkable in the city, you've done. You've done Sugar Sand Park. You've done Red Reef. You've actually helped the city out with the Hornley Park. You've done so many projects. Look at this building. It's incredible. That's why we chose you, because we knew that you do it right. It's not a penny pinching deal that we want. We want the best for Boca. And the only way to do that is to basically do it. You know, the city basically wants to they want to go back and they want to basically re-engineer the whole thing, and we know a year or two, for God's sake, before that's done. Second thing, they want to make it as cheap as possible. That's not what we want. We live in Boca. We don't mind paying the extra taxes. We really don't. You know, but the decision is yours tonight to make that decision. And you're going to be criticized a little bit. I think for the good of all of us, I think the thing to do is to raise the millage rate. You know, because it's what has to be done. And sometimes in life, you just have to step up and do what's right. And that's what it just boils down to. All right. Good evening. Thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Chaffee.
Thank you. Rick Hurd, 285 Northeast Spanish Court. It's been a tumultuous week. And I first of all also support the change to the millage rate as needed to move forward with all the projects that the district has on its plate. A couple of comments just on the design and the plans for Boca National. I want to encourage the district to stay the course with the design and the concept that we have at hand, and not let it be compromised by others who are trying to save a dollar here or there, or to try to come up with a solution that's less than the whole. Obviously, the estimated costs are the lightning rod for this project. I've spent a lot of time delving into the nitty-gritty details of the costs. And I know from what I've looked at and from my conversations that the Price Fazio design that we have, I say we, I feel like I own that design, as do all of us, because the district has gone through the due diligence and the selection process, and we've made a decision that that is our design. And it's a wonderful concept, so I consider that to be my design as well as all of ours. That design needs to be maintained and not compromised just to save a dollar here or there. And I'm confident, having dived into the details, that the Price Fazio cost estimates, and they are just estimates now, it's not costs yet, because there's nothing been done, it's just estimates. I'm confident that those estimates can meet all of the requirements set out by the City Council when they asked for other architects to come forward with a design that could be done for $8 million. We have a design that can deliver a golf course as requested by the city for $8 million. There are a lot of things that are in the design that are unfairly penalizing our design that can be looked at differently. I'll just give you an example. The design includes the purchase of a lot of new equipment to maintain the course when it's built. No architect is going to come forward now and include those costs. So when we relook at our costs, I think we can rephrase them and repackage them in a way that will be much more palatable. So to summarize, I just want to say that I'm confident that we can go forward with the design. I encourage the district to stick with it and stay the course. And I know that there's some pencil sharpening and some other fine tuning that can be done to make the presentation look a lot better on the costs. Thank you.
Thank you, Rick. You put a lot of time in, and we really appreciate all your efforts.
Hello, for the record, Robert Duquette, 5351 Northwest 3rd Terrace. I'm not here to support the design or be against the design, but I think the real issue is lack of funding. At the last meeting, we heard that a 30% millage rate increase would give you sufficient funds, about $9 million a year, to provide a 3-year phase-in on the construction of the project. I had asked many months ago about the financial plan for funding this, even when Mr. Timberlake was in the audience at times. And nothing was ever brought up about that until just recently. It's been clear for the last couple of months, at least, that the city staff, as well as most of the council, were not too eager to fund a $28 million project. So I think that it's time to realize that if you're not able to complete the project, whether it be your design or another design, it's time to do what's in the best interest of the residents and have a modified or a new interlocal agreement with the city. And that's my recommendation. Also, as I said last meeting, I did not support a millage increase. I think that having a millage increase for a project that may take 5 or 10 years, if you can't do a 30% increase, is not really in the best interest of the golfers or the residents. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Decay. Public requests are still open. Okay, Barry.
Good evening, Barry Tatro, 3088 Northwest 27th Avenue, Boga. Having sat through the workshop and the meeting the other night, actually I left the meeting, I watched it on TV, some of it, but you know, they're not in this with us. They have some weird concept that they can do it for cheap because this Winter Park thing, and they think we are, you know, the cost of this course is, how do they know what the cost of the course is? They have no idea. They never built one. These people are commissioners. This is what their task is, to carry out the wishes of the public in terms of parks and recreation. So raise the millage. Go ahead, raise it as much as you can. It's not that much. And if it's going to let us do our concept to the finish, which is a wonderful concept, you know, if it costs that much, it costs that much. But this is what Boca needs. This is what Boca deserves. This is what our people over here have spent so much time mulling over. They chose a wonderful architect who's going to build us a wonderful course. It's all about the money, right? It's all about the money. They don't want to part with their money. And to let them being the city council, have a hand in this, delay the deliberations on this till August 22nd, so the people from Winter Park who missed the last meeting can tell us about their ideas, is ludicrous. So we need to move on, pass the millage, raise the money. The Boca Limbo, Gumbo Limbo have their money, us our money. No one's going to care, seriously. I mean, it's not that much money per person. We need to just get them out of the whole process. We can't let them have any ideas on it. If you let them put money in it, they're going to want skin in the game. They've got skin in the game. They're going to want to oversee it. They're going to want to have their 2 cents in it. They will not work with us. They're an adversary in this whole process. And it's time. Increase taxes. Do it. And make Boca proud of the golf course that they've decided that we should have. And let's stop dealing with them. Thanks.
Thank you, Barry.
Joe Babinski, 6300 Northwest 2nd Avenue, apartment 310, east side of Northwest 2nd Avenue, for those of you who don't know me. Increase the millage rate. Also, as all of you know better than I, since I haven't contributed, it's been 4 years. We've been talking about this the short side of 4 years. It's a great plan. I noticed, since I've been involved in some marketing efforts, your logo is Build a Better Community. And actually, because of my background in real estate construction, design, architectural engineering, and some friends in a community near me called Hidden Valley, this same process was gone through like 35 years ago when IBM came into this community and basically built it to a success. This is a fabulous plan. I'm not a golfer. I won't even use the golf course. I've lived in my own apartment with my wife and daughter for almost 19 years here. And I urge you to increase the millage rate, get this done for the benefit of all of the taxpayers who for decades in the Boca Chica community have contributed to Boca Raton, as well as your logo indicates, to build a better community. And thanks for your time.
Joe, it's time you learned how to play golf.
I can't. I spent so much time reading all of this.
Hi, my name is Tony DiDio. Excuse me. I live at Okeechobee, 6200 Northwest 2nd Avenue. I never thought in my life I'd ever say raise my taxes. It's okay to raise my taxes, but
New York.
Yeah, especially there, and I just came back. It needs to be done. It really needs to be done. And the only thing, everybody said pretty much what I was gonna say, but I just don't wanna see it done because I live there in phases. If you start this thing, finish it. That's my biggest thing. Don't do it in phases. With that, thank you.
Thanks, Tony. It's good to see you.
Thank you.
Don't be shy.
Joyce Martin at 6161 Northwest Second Avenue, Boca. And you know what? My parents were here. Boca Chica was built in 1978. When I came down here, Boca Chica was so well known. It was premium. People used to line up out of the clubhouse. The line used to go around the corner. Men had to wear jackets to go into the penthouse to eat. And I watched the deterioration of this golf course from the management companies, and I look out on the golf course and I see such a decline and such a mess. It can come back to be one of the best that there is. You know, you think of Delray Beach and you think of a destination resort. Well, let's make Boca back to a destination, place to come. And what makes it so beautiful are our parks and your work. So make the golf course what it should be. We can afford it, we need it, we can look at it and be proud.
Thank you, Joyce. And thanks for your email, you and Roberta. Who else would like to speak? I'm going to close public requests unless somebody stands up. Al?
Yeah, I got something to say. I always have something to say. Hi, Alison Carl, 561 Golden Harbor Drive. I just want to be a little strategic here today. Your decision tonight is simply to set the millage rate at the highest, at whatever point you set. You're not making a decision to raise the taxes tonight. But if you set the millage rate as high as you're being asked to set it, or you consider it, you improve your negotiating position with the city of Boca Raton. They have been dealing with you as if you are an orphan stepchild. They have been dealing with you because you've been dealing with, in their mind, a position of weakness. You come back with an opportunity to be able to fund this yourselves, and I think that their attitude changes. At least I hope their attitude changes. And if it doesn't, you'll be here in what, 4 or 5 weeks to approve whatever the rate you set tonight. You can't, if you set it low tonight, you can't raise it. If you set it high tonight, you can lower it down. So let's be strategic and give yourselves the opportunity to get out from under the orphan stepchild position. And you know my position on this. My position is follow City of Pound Sand and do this on your own. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Al. Sir, would you like to, we still have public requests open if you would like to speak. Okay. We are going to close public requests and we're seeking approval of the minutes of the board meeting of July 15th. Do I hear a motion?
So moved, Madam Chairman.
Second by Mr. Ernst. Discussion. All in favor of the approval, please say aye.
I want to say something.
Oh, please do. You can't vote.
And actually doesn't give me, actually I can't vote. But this gives me no pleasure, but here's what I told you so. Bob, you put in, made a suggestion for RFP for public relations. And I think we had this discussion in 4 years ago. I'm all for it. But I just need to
Okay, all in favor of approval of the minutes of July 15th, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, like sign. Motion passes, Joanne. We have moved our business items, number 5, the Gumbo Limbo MOU, up to number 1. Brianne, would you like to address that? Jacob's going to go over it. Thank you, Mr. Horowitz.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good evening, Commissioners. 2 months ago, Round Numbers, the board directed our office to work with the Friends of Gumbo Limbo to craft a memorandum of understanding that could embrace several ideas, particularly when the Friends approached the district, identifying that they had a private donor who was interested in funding some of the EDA compliance requirements as it relates to the tower development at the Gumbo Limbo site. We've worked in good faith with the Friends, come up with a document that I think embraces the terms and conditions that this board had previously discussed. It does provide for the naming rights for the tower once the project is completed to accommodate the request of the Friends donor. I believe they're in agreement with all the terms that are set out before you, and we're happy to answer any questions if you have anything that I can clarify in the context of the memorandum.
Discussion, Commissioners? Any questions? Concerns? Do I hear a motion to accept the MOU?
I'd like to make a motion. Second.
Seconded by Mr. Engel. Any more discussion? All in favor of the MOU for Gumbo Limbo, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, like sign. Motion passes. Thank you very much for doing this, Michelle. And thank you, the donor, of course, please. Okay. Number 2, first public hearing date, proposed millage rate.
Do we want to go ahead and look at the calendar first before we start talking about the first public hearing? Yeah, I just got, we want to set the date for the first public hearing before we get into that conversation. So the calendars are in everybody's folder. I think we should look at the week of September 9th.
Let me check the calendar. Okay, no, it's good. You good? Oh, it's not.
Okay, so we can look at the 10th on Tuesday. We don't want to conflict with that.
Would that be a city council meeting then?
Do you want to do Wednesday, the 11th? Okay. Steve, we're ready for Wednesday, the 11th? Do we want to do 6 o'clock?
Yes, we do 6 o'clock.
The record, Madam Chair, you want to make sure that the record reflects under the statute, the date,
We'll
the
have a
time,
motion.
and the place by motion. Thank you.
Do I hear a motion to have the first public hearing on Wednesday, September 11th at 6 p.m.?
So moved. And seconded.
Okay, any
In these
discussion?
chambers.
In these chambers,
Yes,
yes.
ma'am. Thank you.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Motion passes, Joanne, September 11th at 6 p.m. in these chambers. Okay, that's done.
Now we'll ask Mr. Timberlake to come up and go over the,
No, we can't do that until we've had the first.
we're sent over 3 new sheets that were not part of your agenda packets, and those are in your folders.
Good evening. My name is Merv Timberlake. I'm the financial advisor for the Greater Boca Raton Beach and Park District. And I've been working in the last few days on the district proposed budget for the year starting October the 1st, 2019, and ending September the 30th, 2020. So we're going to call it primarily the 2020 budget. But I just want to, and I'm going to go move some things around a little bit because I thought it would be easier to understand it. Okay.
let's start with this page, and this is one of the handouts I gave you today. The district has an assessed value of almost $29 billion. About $4 billion of that relates to the unincorporated area, the rest of that's in the city of Boca Raton. So with $28 billion, and you are a very large tax assessment in Palm Beach County, you're larger than any other city, which is interesting. You're larger than Palm Beach or West Palm or Wellington or Boca Raton because you have the additional area. So it doesn't take a lot of millage increase to raise the money because you have a really good base. So what I did was I prepared the city, we received from the city on July 12th, their proposed operating budget. Remember, the city of Boca Raton does our operations. They man the parks, they maintain the parks, they pretty much do everything for the, the district has 3 employees right now. So everything else is pretty much handled by the city. So it's very important for us when we get that number to know what that is, and so we can base our budget off of that. So the line that says city FAU operations, we pay $320,000 a year to the FAU for the field that we rent from them, and the rest of that is related to the city of Boca Raton. It's almost $21 million that we pay. Less $350,000 is all that we pay that to the city each month for a monthly bill of maintaining. They have about 120 employees that are pretty much tied directly to the district. We have an existing debt service, and that's on the golf course, and that's $1.6 million a year. We have district administration, which is their 3 employees, our insurance bill, which is about $500,000 a year, our payments to the Palm Beach County tax collector for collecting our taxes, and the Palm Beach County property appraiser, and other our audit and our legal fees and that type of thing. We also have to make a payment to the Boca Raton CRA, the money that we collect because the Boca Raton downtown development is in ours. We have to pay that. I believe that's through 2025, if I remember correctly. And then we have district, we have city CIP projects and district CIP projects. The city sends us each year what they anticipate projects will be. This could be the boardwalk at Gumbo Limbo. It could be the major improvement next year is a new saltwater pump facility that they're putting in, which has been we've been processing for about 2 years now to get the permit. That's over $3 million of that number. The district CIP projects are buildings like the one that we're in today, which was a district CIP project. But there are next year will just be basically some smaller projects, and they're listed on one of the schedules in there. And our major revenue is tax revenue, and our other major revenues are user fees that we receive. The city collects for us for use of our parks and facilities, and the special events that might take place. And then we have a line that's called reserves, and this is the balance that comes forward every year of funds that we have available. In the past, we've had a really large balance because we've had a lot of projects that have been on hold. They've been problems, whatever. This facility was one. The playground, the Sugar Sand took a long time to get the process to build. So those kind of projects, but we used some of the money to buy the golf course last year, $2.5 million to do that, and another 2.5 for the deposit the year before too. And then we come to reserves, and every year the district has to make sure that we have at least $2 million for operating reserves in case something happens and we can't collect taxes or whatever, something like that. And then we're trying to set funds aside for beach renourishment. Beach renourishment, every 4 or 5 years, the city says we have a 50% agreement that if there's a beach renourishment project, we will share within 50% of the cost. So basically, if we kept the millage rate, the current rate is 0.9147. 0.9147. If we kept that at the end of the year, 2020, we would have about $2.9 million left. So not a lot of money, to build a golf course to do anything, pretty much, maybe, yeah. So the district commissioners, we talked before about what it would do to start increasing the millage rate. So I looked at various scenarios of giving, I'm gonna go one more page forward. And the first page, Not moving forward. Let's see. Okay, this one. Okay, like I said before, we have a really high assessed value, which is the property line here. These are our current rates. We had almost $29 billion. Current rate would give us eligible about $25.6 million if we kept the rate currently. And that would give us roughly $1.1 million additional money. We looked at if we wanted $3 million additional money, which would be a 7.3% increase of the millage rate. Millage would go from 9.147 to 9.814. We would raise an additional $3 million from that. If we wanted to look for $5 million, it would come to, the real rate would go to 10528, and we would have a 15% in the millage rate. This would give us a scenario of raising the millage rate 1.1242, which is almost a 23% increase, would give us an additional $7 million. And $9 million would be almost at 1.1956, and that would be a 30.71 increase, but that would give us $9 million in the coming year. I did another scenario where if we were looking at trying to raise $9 million because the budget has come in a little bit less than we anticipated. I can back up the sheet. And right now, this increase gives us about $10 million extra. If we reduced it to 1.1468, would give us about $9 million. So that's why I ran that one, and it would be about 25% increase. Okay. Like I said earlier, you have a high assessed value, so it does not take a lot of millage increase. You know, some of the cities talking raising this kind of money would be a disaster. They'd be over the 10 mil cap, or real quickly. You have a 2 mil cap. That's a special district, but like I said, it does not take a lot of money to do that. Anybody have questions from the commissioners on this page or the previous page? Yes.
I have a couple questions, but the first one, you helped me with a presentation that was in the city that we did earlier in June.
Mm-hmm.
And of those assumptions, we made some assumptions about deferring city CIP
Correct.
projects.
Yes.
This current presentation includes all of the proposed CIP.
It all includes all the proposed CIP projects.
And does that include the carryover of the pumps and piping?
Yes, let's go back. There's a schedule. Next. Okay, this is the city CIP projects for next year. We have a $198,000 number. Those are the projects. The main project is that pump replacement at Gumbo Limbo of $3.2 million. And that project did carry forward and was increased during the process as well. Okay, so that's the major project next year. There's some other lightning and Spanish River. Most of these projects have continued over from prior years with the city. I know the commission has not gone over with them yet.
So, but what I'm trying to ask the question of, and maybe I'm not, your budget assumes the budget from the city.
Correct. It assumes the budget for the city. We have not. You have not reviewed this project yet.
Michael, would you mind coming to the stage, sir? I'm sorry, because you're jumping ahead. We have to assume that we have accepted everything that we said.
Correct. And I mean, that's one of the things, Craig, because this is just a tentative rate. You've got the month of August to go over these projects with the city.
I understand. So, Michael, I hate to put you on the spot, but the proposal we got was for a proposed budget, not yet approved. We got it last Monday, and I realized the city manager was out. But my question is, this kind of came with a lot of caveats. It's proposed, tentative, may change, and we have in there a pumping project that was 2.9 million and is 3.2 million now proposed. We also have in there some buildings that, you know, collectively are $3 to $4 million with initial design, you know, and these things kind of come across as, are those the final numbers? Is this the final budget that we should be working from and developing a millage rate for our residents or not?
First off, Commissioners, good to see you. Michael Calvert, your Parks and Recreation Director, Recreation Services Director here in Boca Raton. Thank you for calling me up here. I did have the opportunity of talking with Lee Farnell earlier in the week, as well as Sharon McGuire, the OMB Budget Director. These are the numbers, and this is the budget that will be passed along to Council. There is some information here, such as the pumping project. I did talk with Jennifer Bastiga after our meeting, I think it was last Monday. She confirmed the numbers of 3.2 million. I passed along a request that she come along and present that pump project to you all. I also did confirm that once that project is done, if we would do anything more to Gumbo Limbo on the west side of A1A, the pump project on the east side of A1A would not be impacted. There are other projects in here, such as a shared cost basis of both the Spanish River Maintenance Complex, which is at the Spanish River Beach Park right off A1A, which was in your budget a couple years ago, and then we took it out for a year because you all asked that would be deferred. The other project that we have in the budget, which is shared, is the Countess de Hornley Maintenance Complex, which instead of a 33-66 split like the Spanish River one, this one was estimated to be 20% BPD, 80% city, because our intention is to bring a lot of our beautification team from the Municipal Services Complex into the Hornley. That's why that percentage was lower than the Spanish River, although the cost is higher than that.
Okay. So then my other question also is, there is a redesign of Gumbo Limbo into future years. By agreeing to this budget, are we also agreeing to the redesign of the 20 or 30 million that's required for Gumbo Limbo?
The way you guys have always done your budget is we bring these projects to you year by year by year. We submit sheets to you. You all go through these projects, have a conversation, and at that time you can either approve or defer. I would tell you, however, there's been a lot of hard work that's been done by our friends of Gumbo Limbo, as well as our team at Gumbo Limbo, as well as city staff, both in recreation services as well as municipal services. There will be a time where deferring projects too long will have significant impacts to our citizens. Some you can defer longer than others. I will tell you, my number one priority, as I've said before, is the Spanish River Maintenance Complex, just because we're in a place where I'm afraid that our building officials will close it down in the near future because it's reaching that point of deterioration. The other projects you can defer, however, I would caution about deferring them too far out. With Gumbo Limbo, we actually pushed that back a year or two to start detailed design, eventually getting into a phase plan, and we're currently working very closely with the Friends of Gumbo Limbo to come up with the right size for that plan.
Okay, and I see Gumbo Limbo not starting until 2022. It's 2.3 million, it's 15.8 million, it's 4.9 million, it's 1.8 million to the district.
That is a phased project. Again, we're working very closely with the Friends of Gumbo Limbo as well as EDSA, our architects at this point, to try to come up with a more firm phasing plan and true cost as we go 3, 4, 5 years down the road.
Yeah, maybe it's something that we as a commission group should talk a bit about. I mean, I think we all value Gumbo Limbo, but what I struggle with on a lot of the projects here from the city, particularly the CIP projects, is it's a blank check. And it's not a blank check because we're trying to balance everything. And so there comes a point where priorities happen and priorities occur. And I really appreciate the fact the city did remove a $9 million project for Spanish River, the Countess de Hornley Fields. But again, that's out there in 2022, I think, or is it in 2021? I think it's, again, these are things that are way out there. So
I believe design is this coming year and construction is the following year. So construction in 21, 22, if I'm not mistaken.
Right, so it's the next year's budget.
Correct.
So all that's money that is not, we don't have today, and we can't commit to taxpayer dollars in 2023, 22, or anything. This is the budget about today. So we do at some point have to go back to Mr. Timberlake's assumptions of $5 billion of city CIP projects that are scheduled that could be reallocated towards the golf course. And that's a project that we have ready to go if we want to do that.
I understand the commission has very difficult choices. You've already heard from a number of your constituents that discuss the difficult choices that you guys have to make. Again, I can't speak on behalf of our city council. I'm kind of the go-between, but again, I'm more than happy to bring your comments back to our city manager, who will then pass it along to city council.
Yeah. Just a question, Michael. Historically, in the last 24 years, we've had a lot of opportunities to defer projects when something new comes along. We're just now finishing up two major projects. This location, which was in excess of $5 million, and Patch Reef, which is a $4 million project. So, we're, as everyone knows, we're scratching for every dollar that we can. And with the phase 2 of Spanish River, I had to completely taken it off our radar because we could never get a ILA settled for that park. And with the discussion now, before we even have a needs assessment, it's kind of hard to even get my arms around having that. But I know in the past, and we've operated on the assumption that it's okay to look down the road, but we're to focus on what's here now. What's here now is staring us in the face is the golf course. And I know you understand what I'm talking about with the expense involved there. But the pumps and piping there at Gumbo Limbo, we've been all about getting that done. And, it's been going on for a considerable number of years. And we're at 3.2 million, which last year was 2.9 million. It keeps going up the longer it's delayed. And I'm hoping that Jennifer is correct that that's going to get done this year. And I'm happy to keep those items in the budget. The other things that, since Craig brought this up, and I'm going to take the opportunity to tell you some things that I'm interested in deleting from this CIP for the district, for the city, are the first one is the Spanish River sideline 2.25, the maintenance facility at 170,000. The Spanish River maintenance, that's design cost 231,000, and restroom renovations 185,000. I think those are things that we can defer because I'm just not interested in doing those projects this year. I'm okay with the other the vehicles and other equipment that you've listed down there. Had no issues with those, and as well as the SBCS fund, which seems every year we got the same funding there. And I know with cyber liability issues, we've got to keep current with that to keep our privacy and keep our computers safe from corruption. But those are the areas right there that straight away that I feel like we ought to defer. Yes, ma'am, I sure will. The first, the lighting, 225,000. That was in there previously, I believe. The Spanish River Beach Maintenance Facility design, these are design costs, 170,000. And then the Spanish River, I guess the 231,000 item there is the maintenance facility at Spanish River Park. And then the restroom renovations, 185,000. And I believe in talking to with our facilities manager, that's more cosmetic in nature. That restroom doesn't need to be renovated at this time. Is that right, Melissa?
My opinion of that is that could be delayed a year.
Okay, all right. Which was the reason that I struck that one from my list also.
What about the field, Spencer River Field as well? The Spencer River Field maintenance facility?
Yes.
And the field.
Both of those.
No, I'm pretty much on the same page as Bob. As an aside, in addition to that, I think we need to re-examine all the commitments we've made to the city not only in this upcoming budget, but as far as our CRA contributions go, as far as our beach renourishment contributions go, because it seems to me that we're always the guy with our hand in the pocket, taking up money to give to the city every time they ask. And we come back to the city and we say to them, we want you to be our partners in this. We're not asking you for to shoulder the entire burden. And they said, nah, we don't think so. So maybe it's just time we started looking at all our interlocal agreements and every dollar's worth of capital commitment that we make to the city that doesn't seem to be reciprocated when the time comes, and say, well, you know, maybe not so much this time. Maybe we need to go back and take a look at what we're doing. Especially, I have to say what irked me about the last several meetings about the golf course is how the city brought up, well, it took you a year to get us the numbers we wanted. It took us a year because we wanted to make sure those were the right numbers. And if we're going to talk about time, how long has it been that the city attorney's office has the master interlocal agreement? 3 years. I think both you and Susie and you, Bob, you remember the heat we took because we didn't get them back our version of the ILM when they wanted it. It seems like and I'm sorry to vent, ladies and gentlemen, but I think these are things that need to be said. It seems like every time they need something, they expect us to hop to it. But when we're asking them, and we're not asking them for a lot, when push comes to shove, okay? We're asking them to be partners in a project that can only benefit the city of Boca Raton and the residents of the Beach and Park District in general. And they seem to say, well, guys, your opinion doesn't really count for much. Just keep that checkbook open whenever we need. Ladies and gentlemen, if I have anything to say about it, that is going to stop.
Right.
Done.
Good.
All right? I spoke with our council, and he agrees with me that all of our ILAs with the city need to be re-examined and need to be renegotiated. And I think that's one of the projects we should have bought.
Is there a future agenda on that? And I understand that you're looking into that. Mr. Gordon?
Madam Chair, if you will, we're actually looking at all of the ILAs. We're trying to kind of put them on a matrix to understand exactly where they began, when they end, what the termination provisions are, what the obligations are, and give you a fairly clear-cut and concise recommendation as to what they look like, and then you can make some decisions that are based upon your own policy-making decisions. I'm happy to do that.
Aaron, you look like you were ready to say something.
I turned on the microphone now. Unless you want to go first. Okay.
Well, look, I'm sorry I opened a can of worms. I wasn't expecting that, Steve. But I guess the city is our partner, and I think we do want to fund all the things that are there. But we do have a project in front of us, and I appreciate the budget that you put together with the staff that deliver the services. And we cannot, as a partnership with the city, we should focus on residents. They don't know if it's a city or the district. We need to stay focused on that. And so that said, you know, I'm fully supportive of the operational budget, you know, the operation of running everything. The only things I would say is I think we need to really re-examine the capital side of it. If we can divert it, we should. I'm looking for Merv to support the document he gave me for the June meeting that said we could defer all our capital projects as best we could. And how much would that generate for us? I'm looking for $5 million out of this year's current budget. And how can we apply that for the golf course? That's what's important to me before I start talking about raising taxes or doing anything. we are a very rich taxing authority, so why can't we use what we already have to get what we need to get done? Yes, that's not 20 million, I understand that, but I'm trying to find every nickel and every dollar so that we don't have to do anything that's, it's gonna harm someone, because it just doesn't, there's no benefit to taking it out of people's pockets. They can do a better job on it, and I'd rather focus on what we get.
Yeah, I just wanted to, I get the feeling, and I haven't been here as long as other people have been here, neither has Craig, but I'm trying to develop a good relationship with the city instead of being so negative with them all the time. I don't get the feeling that they don't want to be a part of this. They said the word partnership about 8,000 times in their meeting. They want to be a partner in this. And I know everybody's going to tell me I'm wrong tonight, but I feel like they do want to be a partner. But if they didn't, they would have said that.
If I may. Back a year ago, June, Mayor Singer stated that he wanted a championship golf course in the city of Boca Raton. They have talked about being our partners. They've talked a great deal about being our partners. But when the rubber hits the road, it's another story entirely. When it benefits them, they want to be our partners. When they came to us and said, well, we would like you to come up with some extra money for beach renourishment to take care of that part of the coastline that is not within the Beach and Park District, we didn't hesitate because we felt it was to the benefit of Beach and Park District residents as a whole and city residents as well. When they asked us to fund the piping project, even though they were going to take it over, and we're in what, maybe our third or fourth year, and still not done, we said, okay, this is part of our partnership with the city. I'm all for being a partner with the city, but I'm getting tired of being disappointed every time we ask them to step up. And they said, well, not so much. All right, and going to a joint meeting and hearing about, it took you guys a year to get this. It took you guys 6 months to get this. It took you guys 4 months to get this. You paid too much for this, you did this, you did that, okay? I heard it from somebody who communicated with me about the golf course. Well, you think you spent too much on the golf course? Maybe we did, maybe we didn't. The point is that it's spent.
Right.
All right.
And the $28 million is not spent yet.
No, and I'm not saying, we're not asking the city for $28 million.
No, but we're
We're
planning on
asking-
spending $28 million.
We're not necessarily,
Additional.
we're planning on spending what it takes to finish the golf course. And hopefully that will be less than 28 million. I'm a little bit of an idealist, maybe a little naive based on, yes, I'm sorry. And Mike, please don't take this personally. I think you're doing a fantastic job doing what you're doing. All right, this is just a lot of years of pent-up frustration. So I'm going to cut short now. And
Sorry, but I think all these people want to go home at some point. Are there any other specific points on the CIP that you all would like to discuss with Michael?
My question is, where are we going? Are we going to talk about those changes that we want to make in this? Are we going to decide on a millage rate? What exactly is the plan of attack?
Well, our item of business is the millage rate.
So to do that, I think we have to make some assumptions. And so we have to assume what you suggested, Bob, either you're including it or you're not including it. I would also kindly add that the project for the piping project was confirmed for 2.9 million, and I would keep it at 2.9 million. So, not also asked Michael, asked Mayor Singer on, I think it was Monday, would he consider as generously as he offered us our 9 million, taking us out of the Thomas to Horley Phase 2, I think it would be beneficial for us to be taken out of the pumping and piping project completely this year. And I think that would be a good starting point because it's 2.9 million we have reserved. We have cash in the bank, and we'll continue that reserve, but it would be, we can do an amendment later if the city would consider assuming complete responsibility because they are the ones who are managing the project. They're the ones who are going to exceed the initial costs, and it has grown. So I would like to see the city take that project completely and ask to be taken.
Jacob, we have an agreement that we have already agreed to, or can we do that?
Right, Madam Mayor, which agreement specifically are you referring to?
The Red Reef ILA.
There is an ILA with Red Reef, as Sam indicated. We're in the process of reviewing all of our interlocal agreements to determine the city, the district's option in the context of termination, obligation, and other commitments that both parties might otherwise be committed to. We'll look at that specifically as it relates to the Red Reef ILA.
It's an ask, Madam Chair. It's not I expect that we are obligated to pay for it because we said we were going to pay for it. But at this point, I'm just making the formal ask that the city assume the responsibility.
Yeah, I think we probably need to get to the millage discussion because, you know, and I agree with Greg, it's certainly an ask, but we have to set this millage. We have to move forward with that tonight. And I just want to reflect a little bit back on this previous week, and because I've sat through the workshop, I sat through the city council meeting, and if there's any one thing that I'm proud of, it's that we have taken 214 acres of green space and saved it in perpetuity for our kids, whether it's a golf course or whatever happens in the long run. I don't know if everybody attended the council meeting or had the opportunity to watch it on cable. And I thought there was, as somebody said earlier, I thought at the workshop the day before that we were close to an agreement. I thought you were about to close the deal, Greg, on getting the master plan approved because you repeatedly asked for it and they would just deflect that with some more questions. And then you came back again. I think you must have asked that question about 6 or 8 times without getting a satisfactory answer. And then at the workshop, you know, there still was a lot of confusion about the master plan for the golf course. Even one of the councilmen was unaware that we had yardage already in there, that we had a final plan. So we haven't done a very good job of communicating to them, although I know that back in, I think it was in November 2018 or January, we sent over the videos of all of our interviews with the architects. Is that correct? Or the plans with the architects. And so, and I don't know why they didn't circulate and get down to the level of city council, because I think that would have helped a lot, because it would have taken a lot of steam out of where we are today if they had been up to date on that. The suggestion that came out of that workshop or the council meeting by one of the city councilmen was that they do a request for information. It's not an RFP, but it's a request for information they would put out to our architects and to see if there was a better way to improve the design of the course or make it a consulting agreement. I guess I don't know that there's any. I don't know whether there was any cost associated with it other than just getting recommendations. Because as one of the city councilmen said, he's talked to a lot of industry experts and he thought there was a cheaper way to do the course and do it better. I just don't see how we could do the course any less expensive or any better. And the questions that were being discussed got into the rates, and we haven't even discussed the golf rates other than what was in the National Golf Foundation study, which were just speculation based upon what's going on in the surrounding community. I know that I don't have the rates in front of me, but I know Osprey's rates, I think, are a little bit higher than Boca Muni. But as Rick Hurd said to us, and I can support that statement, Osprey's, it's hard to get a tea time at Osprey. Whereas with our own course, we're struggling to make the enterprise fund pay off, and in spite of our best efforts by the staff there to make it go. The objective of getting this RFI is to see if there is a way to, I think, come in with an $8 million budget on the construction of the west side with an 18-hole course. And if you recall, our own designer told us that if you take out a lot of these different things that were for sustainability, movement of trees and so forth, his cost to do that project were not much different than what they were talking about at the city council meeting last night with an $8 million project. I think we owe it to ourselves and to our taxpayers to hear what comes in from that report. That's an August the 27th date that we're, but I think that we need to be prepared, as Mayor Singer said in one of these meetings, that we need to look at all options. And so one of the options that I'm looking at, and I've mentioned previously, is increasing the millage rate. The other option is looking at private funding. The other option, as Craig pointed out, might be cutting back some of the projects that we have. And missing from the entire discussion, either at the workshop or at the council meeting, was the sale of the Boca Muni and the proceeds from the Boca Muni. As I mentioned at one of our meetings, I've been here since '77, so I've paid a lot of taxes in, like a lot of you other people in the audience have, to build and maintain that golf course. And it seemed to me that those recreation dollars should somehow circulate and get back into our pockets, so we to reduce our debt service. With increasing millage rate, or even without that, I don't think it's going to impact some of the other projects we have that are further down the road. We just, as I said earlier, we just finished $10 million in projects. So we've proven that we're capable of doing this. And I believe that the city and their discussion, the prevailing theme through there is taking over the course from the district. I understand that they have more employees than they do, but I don't think that they have any more capable than the ones that we have, as we've proven with the projects that we've built and the ones we're sitting in here right now. Melissa Dawson has managed a good project here. Patch Reef, we're on time and under budget. We did the $14 million project over at Spanish River Fields that was given to us with the plans being 60% completed. We were given those plans by the city and asked if we would be able to finish it up. We said gladly. So we took a $24 million project and brought it in at $14 million. The huge advantage was the economy at the time, but we delivered a project, and I think everybody that's been there knows that it's another superior project like we have here at Swim and Racket. My recommendation is that we withdraw the term sheet that we recently sent to the city, because I don't think Mayor Singer really appreciated the percentages that we proposed in that term sheet. And then I would like to make a motion to get this, set these wheels in motion, that we set a tentative millage rate of 1.1956 mils.
We'll hear a second.
Question. The city mentioned that they would go ahead and fund a project manager for the construction of the golf course. Would you allow them to do that?
No. I would not. We have a project manager right now that's a professional engineer and an attorney that we've had for some 30, 40 years here at the district. And I think Art's quite capable of managing this project. One of the things that is in that interlocal in the agreement that we signed with Price Fazio is that we would have somebody on site that could make decisions. And I don't see that being possible in any other fashion than having somebody like Art who is available to do that.
He's not a golf course construction manager. Don't you feel like that's an important person to have on staff for this?
I think that, first of all, if you hire a firm to contract with a firm to do the construction, then you have somebody that oversees that construction who is on site. And I think that's what we're compensating Mr. Kosky for right now is his project management. Is that not correct, Art?
Yes, sir.
And
So if they have somebody, then we would need it.
if who has somebody, well, they'll have a general contractor who will probably be managing the subs. But the general contractor is going to have somebody he can go to ask questions about change orders, which are invariably going to happen. It happens on every project we have. And that's where we would need Mr. Kosky to be in that position.
And we also have Wayne's assurance that he's going to go over every invoice to make sure that everything is accurate before it comes to, to be paid. He has assured us that he will be there. He's not gonna
And,
let us-
excuse me, and I don't remember the city making that offer, Aaron. I'm sorry. I mean,
Oh, they did.
I didn't hear that. Maybe I lost you.
Can I just comment on that, since you brought it up? And I know you have a motion on the
Yeah,
floor.
we don't have a second.
Not yet, so let's wait on it. First of all, I mean, everyone should take what happened at the city. Some take it as disappointing, some take it as kind of mixed. I think we should all assume it's actually pretty good for the golf community and for the community. Generally. And the reason I say that is because the city said they want to make a golf course, we want to make a golf course. So you got to start with a common ground. We all want to make a golf course. So that is going to happen. So I think that's a good thing. I think it's good that they are looking for a way to have a lower cost, and I'm of the opinion of allow them to do so. An RFI that they approach, I think, look, that is nice, but that's just a request for ideas and things like that. That is not the procurement process that we went through that took us a year-long process. So they are basically saying they want to relook at the design and they want to relook at the procurement process. That puts them at over a year away. And so, fine. My feeling is if they want to look at that, they can. There are significant issues of redevelopment in Boca Chica that need to be addressed. And these things are not just a golf course. This is, major undertakings of different things. So we could be getting into something that's bigger than us. So there's design. We contemplated the whole project with design completed with an understanding of the FOCA code and oversight. That is a very expensive proposition for any homeowner or anyone doing a project in the city of Boca compared to other communities. So we need their kind of buy-in on things. They did mention one of their priorities is they want an independent construction project manager. All takeaways from that meeting. They said the financial participation from the city, they offered 10 million. Later the next night, that 10 million was out of our own budgets. That's not an offer. I thought that was ridiculous.
I did speak to Singer today, and he realized that is not going to work. And I said, the phase 2, we don't even have an ILA at this point. So you can't use that as the 10 million. And he agreed. I
totally agree.
Yes.
But it is embarrassing that we even talk about this stuff and not have firm numbers when we're so far along into it. I was expecting to go to that Monday meeting with some kind of commitment. And that was a disappointment. That they can't, it's turned into a free-for-all. And after Rick Hurd's presentation, I love it. That's why we're here. I mean, we're here for a community activity and that it develops and brings things together. And the further we delay these things is why we are not agile as a government body. And it calls into question, what are we doing? And how are we doing it? Maybe we shouldn't be doing this. This is, it's embarrassing, to be honest with you. So the no financial participation, I didn't expect the flip-flop on it, but that's what we got. We got multiple questions about a phased approach, 28 million. I don't understand that because, the intent was the overall project that was presented was the complete package. It wasn't good enough. So we took out 8 million. We took out a tunnel that was, expensive, 2.5 million. We took out the clubhouse, so get another 3.5 million, some other ancillary things. All of those things take away from the project, but we were told it was too expensive. So we removed that and more. So now we're at 20 million, and they keep talking about it's like a $28 million project. We never said that. So this leads us to miscommunication on both parties' part. And it's hard to respond to miscommunication because it is. So it's clarification. Then we give them the National Golf Foundation study. When I asked the team to give that study, it was with no changes. I wanted them to do their best, just like we gave Fazio, carte blanche. Give us what you think is right for the community. I believe that National Golf Foundation study is fairly accurate. They gave us what they thought is best. If you want to discount membership rates and things like that, that's a policy decision. And I think that you're going to be swamped with people at that golf course. It's going to be a phenomenal golf course if it's built. However, if you want to cut the price to $6, you can go over to Red Reef today and play there, and no one is there. So the pricing is not the issue. It seems to me everything is the issue from their perspective, and there's no buy-in. So I understand that, but I do understand the buy-in. They basically want to take over the golf course. So that leaves us with three options today that we should consider. And those three options are option one, a city takeover of the entire project. And what they said was they'd like to complete the golf course to a Boca Muni standard, set the rates, design, and including the infrastructure, the maintenance buildings, and the clubhouse. So that's option number one. Option number two, the city completes the west side, which is the 18 holes, the infrastructure, and the district completes the east side.
There's a huge flaw in that because of the irrigation there.
They said that I agree with you, and if they wanted to do that, the only way they could do that is as they said, and they could do it with the infrastructure they promised. So they would have to go for water.
They don't understand the project. They have not been involved, and they don't understand the project and the implications that would come about.
Madam Chair, I totally agree with you on the pros and cons of why one is good or bad, but I'm saying we're faced with three options. City takeover of the west side. B, number two is a city completes the west side and the district completes the east side. Or C, or a third option, I should say, is the district proceeds alone and we gather our financial resources and we move forward. Now, before you get excited about that, you need to understand some risk with that option. That risk is we do not have the financial structure aligned yet. That will take at least 12 to 18 months to get it fully aligned. That also, we'll have to reallocate district capital resources significantly to prioritize the golf construction. And that also comes with a lack of city buy-in. Will you be slowed down when we go to get the permits and when we try to do things out there, or will we have to plant another tree and everything analyzed? So there are pros and cons of each of these three options. The decisions we need to make tonight is number one is which one of those three options are we going to do? That will help determine whether we want to set what our millage rate should be set. Of all of these options, though, what is clear to me, the city would like a lower cost, and I think we should like a lower cost. And one way to lower that overall cost is to look at the hotel site, which is zoned as a hotel, and to go ahead and market it as a hotel and seek opinions from a private developer to look for either a hotel, ice cream shop, the things that we saw in the beginning, carving out that parcel and looking for that to be managed by a private entity so that they either pay us one time or pay us an ongoing fee, but it will reduce the cost and you can put things into it. So,
I totally hear you, and I think everybody else hears you. The motion is that we increase the millage rate so that we have the opportunity to go lower if we need to when we finally do this set rate, and that is at 1.1956.
And Madam Chair, I can't support the seconding of the motion until we know what we're doing. I need to know if our options are to allow for a city complete takeover, so no. If we're going to do a half and half, or we're going to proceed it ourselves.
See.
I think what we need to do first is approve the millage rate. I understand and I appreciate what you're saying. But what we're doing tonight is, in effect, giving ourselves some wiggle room based on whether or not we're partners with the city, whether or not one of those options are followed that you laid out. But this gives us the opportunity to not have to worry, well, we really need to do it by option one, we really need to do it by option two, or we really need to do it by option three. This way, by approving this millage rate, we have the opportunity to look at all three options and look at them from the standpoint of, well, we have a fallback. Even though we might not want that fallback, we at least have that opportunity. So with that, I'm going to second Commissioner Rollins' motion, and there you go.
Wait, you took partnership completely off the table?
No.
That's what it sounded like.
I have three, I suggest there's three options, you decide on the three options, then you set the millage rate.
I mean, a working partnership with the city to get it done. That's what it sounded like you took off the table.
I did not.
Oh,
I think we have three options and I remain stick with it. We have to decide that. We talked about pros and cons before. It's either allow the city to take over the complete project or do the project. We do our east side, which we already own. They do their west side plus infrastructure.
Right.
And, or the third option, we proceed with the all our.
Right, but none of those sound like a partnership.
Well,
That's what I'm saying. None of them sound like that's an option anymore on your end of things.
Those, the partnership, call it what you want, that's the interlocal agreement, that you'll have to define the terms of how it's gonna work.
I think, you know, Greg, the only option of those two that I would, of those three that I would support would be the one with the district taking over. And I understand the risks that are involved in that. I don't like us bifurcating the project and the city doing one side and us doing the other side. But I like even a partnership like we originally proposed with our term sheet even less, because I didn't think that there was any appetite for that coming from city council. The one thing I do think that we should take advantage of is the RFI and see if there's anything in there that we've missed and overlooked, and if there's anything that is recommended that's any better. I can't imagine that that's the case, but I know if you give somebody another person's work, they're going to find some way. They're going to find something in there that's maybe attractive. I know in my business, if I give my client a proposal and he runs down the street, he's going to find somebody that will do it a little cheaper, but with a few less bells and whistles, perhaps. I think your presentation you made was pretty solid. I'm agreeing with you. I don't want to close the door on any relationship with the city. We've been in business with them for far too long. But I think at this point, I'm not sensing that they really want to be in the golf business. And what concerns me is now maybe it's changed because of different members on council, but they couldn't wait to get rid of Boca Community, and now, and I know that the getting back in the golf business is probably not what they were very interested in doing. So I'm only good with option number 3 for that reason. But I do think that we need to establish this millage rate tonight. As Merv said, or someone said, we can go lower, we can't go any higher. And in this month that we have to deliberate, we may find that we can work in arrangement with the city.
Deadline July 31st to get.
Right. So we've got to get this. We've got to get this millage rate.
What you're basically approving.
Right.
You're basically determining what is going to be advertised.
Right.
That the taxpayers and our district will receive a notice in August. Then you will have your first public hearing in September. Then that's when you tentatively set the rate, and at the second hearing is when you actually adopt the rate.
Yes.
So but you have to do it by July 31st, and you can't raise it again, but you can. I did this afternoon. Brad asked me to do it. Okay, just real quickly. Current rate is this 9,147. 0.88 would be the rollback rate. We talked about what kind of vote you have to have in September, not tonight, but in September. The majority vote, the way that the states has determined that if you could increase the rate from 9.947 to 1.1171 with just a majority vote, which means you have to have 3 of the 5. If you go higher than that, if you go to 1.2288, you have to have a 2/3 vote, which would require 4 votes. If you go higher than that, which you're not talking about tonight, it would require unanimous vote. You could go up from here to the two mills that you allow, but it would require unanimous vote.
So Mayor, if I read that correctly, to get to the millage rate that I proposed, we would just have 2/3 vote.
You have to have a 2/3 vote in September.
Okay.
In September,
Right,
not
right, yeah.
Is that correct, Mr. Corn?
That is legally correct under the statute. And the statute that you're talking about, or what Mark is discussing, is section 200.065 of the Florida statutes. And tonight is the first step in that process, which is you're setting the proposed millage, which again, correctly for the record, you can't go higher, but you can go lower. And there'll be 2 public hearings, advertised, noticed, and depending on which is the first hearing, will affect what happens the second hearing. But based on the numbers, the percentage of majority or above is as described in the It's correct.
And Craig, we will be happy to further, discuss this. I think that next item on our agenda for business associates might be able to help us see whether this amount of money and possible outside funding would be even possible. Lon, did you have something else?
No, I was ready to call the question, but I wanted to tell Craig, I think you outlined the case for us very well. This is what we're looking at. And Art, in the previous presentation, described, the options that we have as MERV as enumerated this evening. So this is just a tentative millage. Our first meeting that we've scheduled will be to approve that rate or drop it. And then the final session would be to implement that rate. And I do feel confident that the district can manage this project. I think, as Sue said, with the agreement with the Ford agency, Ford and Associates, that we'll find out if there's some private financing that can help us facilitate this. I do want to get this underway. I don't want to wait another year while we're developing the RFI and reviewing that. We know how long that process takes, but we just got through doing something similar to that. So, Madam Chair, I'd like to call the questions.
Can I say something?
Of course you can, Erin, please.
So I just have something written out that, so there's been some false information out there stating that if we don't go along with the millage increase, we won't have golf and development will occur. It will not. That's not what will happen. Everyone on this board is committed to golf, and the council has been clear that they are committed to keeping golf in Boca as well. The first false statement would not just be, it was noted that it would be for 2 years. The increase will not be for 2 years. According to Mr. Kosky's presentation at the last meeting, it would be for 5 years to accomplish the phased-in plan that was presented, which was not what is recommended by the National Golf Foundation. The National Golf Foundation recommend we do this all at once for it to be successful. That's my first point. Another false statement was actually turned into a personal attack against me. Harold, Mr. Chappie. I'm elected, so I expect to be called out for things that I say and things that I vote on, and that's fine. But when I'm called out for something that isn't true, does not help solve the problems we're facing. And that is that we all want golf course built, and it needs to be done in the most fiscally responsible way. I will not be bullied into making decisions that I don't agree with. I was elected to represent all of our residents, and that includes those who don't want their taxes increased to pay for a golf course. So I will weigh my decision not based on one person, but on everyone in the collective voice. I am lucky that I can afford a tax increase, which was noted that I could not, which I never said. But my ability to afford one has no relevancy to me being elected, and that shouldn't have been brought up. Because whoever can afford $80 a year, they can still be elected officials. That should have no relevancy to this discussion whatsoever. I will support the motion tonight to propose the millage rate at the suggested level, but I will likely not support this in December and September. After I've had a chance to hear from all our constituents at the 2 public meetings. But obviously, according to that, it won't make a difference anyway. So they don't need a unanimous vote to raise the millage to that percentage. But I just wanted to put that out there because it kind of kept me up at night. It was disheartening, and for false information to be put out there was just not right, because I got numerous emails from people in Boca Chica. I get it. I live in Hidden Valley, you guys. I'm right down the street. I drive through Boca Chica every single day. So I want the golf course just as much as you, and it's going to happen. It's not going to be developed in any way. We own the property. It can't be developed. So just be patient, and I understand that it's been taking a very long time. I get it. But you will have a golf course. We promise you that. So to attack people personally is not right. And I won't be bullied. Okay? I just wanted to make that clear to everybody. And it's coming from deep down inside. Thank you.
Thank you, Erin. The question has been called. The motion is before us to set a tentative millage rate of 1.1956. And I'm going to ask you, should we have a roll call vote?
It would be appropriate.
Joanne, would you do a roll call vote?
Commissioner Ernst? Commissioner Evil?
Yes.
Commissioner Rollins?
Yes.
Commissioner Bogason?
Yes.
And Commissioner Webb? Yes. Motion passes 4.
Thank you, Joanne. We will keep at this, everybody. We will get this done. Number 3 on our agenda is the Ford and Associates engagement letter on page 13.
Commissioners, I have Mr. Will Reed on the phone over here. Do you have any questions?
Madam Chair, may I give a brief introduction that may help you to kind of get the credit for why the reading is on? Yeah. Madam Chair and Commissioners, in the backup is a proposal from a group called Ford and Associates. They're a firm that's located in Tampa, Florida. They are what's referred to as IRMAs, Independent Registered Municipal Advisors. Will, can you hear me okay? Okay, good evening.
Everybody, if you please hold your conversation outside, this will be much easier for Mr. Gorin to explain this to us all.
Thank you, Madam Chair. A few moments ago, Merv Timberlake gave you a very thorough, measured presentation with regard to millage and budget and related activities of the district. What Merv is to you is not exactly what the proposal is offered by Ford and Associates. Merv is your financial director, who's your director of finance, essentially. Although he is a financial advisor, his role and relationship is one where he's engaged by you, directed to assist you with all manner of accounting and other related financial matters. But he's not the same specifically as Ford and Associates. Jerry Ford and John Howard and Will Reed are qualified professionals. Their source of business is principally local government, which includes both county government, school boards, cities, municipalities, and special districts. Why do you hire them? Well, a couple of reasons, and I think and Will can better speak for himself, but there are about 4 or 5 bullet points in the proposed engagement agreement. And they've worked for us in the past, but it's not their first engagement. Serving as the district's independent registered municipal, IRMA, and they do serve a specific legal role and ethical role in connection with providing their advice to you on an independent basis, which is somewhat different than that provided by IRMA. They would also assist and review the district's financial position and revenue sources as it relates to its ability to arrange potential financing from various sources. They have the legal ability and the ethical obligation to look at those various sources, whether it be ad valorem taxes, bond transactions, private financing, or other types of bank loans that are qualified, et cetera, under the federal tax laws. They also have in their proposal to assist in identifying financing options for the implementation of those projects. Again, leaving open all the various and sundry options to handle that which you would seek to have them assist you with in the context of funding. Also to coordinate and participate in discussions with the district or legal counsel and potentially bond counsel should there be a bond transaction involved, to develop a strategy for implementing a plan of finance. In the event that the district finances through the city of Boca Raton, assist in evaluating the city's terms, conditions, et cetera, and also be able to evaluate items and matters that may come to them from time to time. Our law firm has had the privilege of working with Ford & Associates for a number of years in many of our cities. They are essentially independent in the context of how they do their business with us, in the sense that if something is being proposed by staff or being proposed by members of the commission, essentially the end result is they have the obligation to tell you what's right, wrong, or indifferent. They have a specific obligation to be your sense of balance in the context of making decisions. I know from personal experience, and I'm not their agent, I'm not their advocate, but I am someone who's had work done with them over the past number of years. Having an independent outside financial advisor is a very thorough and useful tool in the context of the multiple tools in the toolbox, in assisting local governments, municipalities, special districts, et cetera, to have that additional source of assistance. I'll best, through the chair, let Mr. Reed better explain what may be, or answer questions as the case may be, about the role and relationship, but I find their role to be very important, particularly as a lawyer on behalf of local government, looking to them to make sure that they give us the best advice that they can regarding legal qualifications and the basis for investments, as well as destination finances, et cetera. And I think the comfort of that would be hearing from Will at this time to give you that sense of balance in that discussion, if you will, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Gorin. Good. Sorry about that. Thank you, Mr. Gorin.
Thank you.
Should we move the over or the microphones over? No.
One item, Sam does a great job laying out our purpose and our role in providing you advice. The agreement that you folks have in front of you today does not obligate you to issue any bonds or to do any sort of financing. It does not in any direction. The regulatory environment that we find ourselves in basically requires us to have an understanding between us and any of our clients that lay out a scope of service and basically an agreement up front for us to be able to provide advice. The purpose of this agreement is to allow us to work with your staff to go through and lay out potential options and advise you moving forward. It does not obligate you in any way to move forward in any particular direction or move forward at all.
Thank you. In doing this, are you going to work specifically with Mr. Gorin and Mr. Horowitz, or with other portions of our staff, or whoever we need?
We would work with the entirety of your staff.
Okay, thank you. Commissioners, do you have some questions for Mr. Reed?
Madam Chairman, I do have one question. On the second page of the engagement letter from Ford & Associates, that says the initial scope of services does not include items related to a financing issue issued by the district and not by the city. Should the district choose a financing option other than debt issued by the city, the advisor will submit an amended scope of services and fee schedule. Does that mean that the schedule we have in front of us is related only to financing that's issued by the city?
The background for the way that was laid out was the initial financing that we worked with you all on occurred back in 2018. We started with you folks in 2017. That issue, because you do not have the ability to issue tax exempt debt on your own, you had to go through a conduit, and that issue went through the city. That's why this was laid out the way that it is. The fee structure and the scope of service contemplates having the city be the issuer. If that's not the route you're looking to go, if you're looking to either go through a separate conduit, such as a cap trust or another statewide issuer, we could revise the scope of service. This allows us to get started working for you folks.
This is Craig. The answer is yes, we do need to modify that because we have to look at all options. So at this point, we do not have city financing as the option. And so we are going to look at the non-ad valorem revenue as a possible source of revenue. So I think I'm supportive of the general agreement that you could delete that section in the initial scope. I think you need to include everything.
Is that possible, Mr. Reed?
It is, and I'm sorry, I wasn't being very clear when I gave my prior answer. The city financing would be a financing backed by the district, but the issuer of the debt would be the city. Basically, you would borrow the money via non-ad valorem, but not that it used to be a non-ad valorem issue. But the issuer of the debt, much like the issue in 2018, it would be the city, but secured by your revenues.
Correct me if I'm wrong, Craig, but I was under the impression that they are not going to do another revenue bond because it would impact their
Better rating.
AAA.
That is
Correct.
So unless something changes, which things seem to change frequently, we do not have a city loan option on the table. So your proposal really should reflect something other than city financing options.
We're happy to revise that.
So how do we proceed? Do we wait for the revision?
Madam Chair, if I may, one of the options is that the general scope of services can be modified in a letter of engagement that reflects whatever motion you make this evening. If you move and pass a motion this evening to engage Board and Associates, to the extent that they would modify the letter, it would be done subsequent to your motion. But I would like you to clarify with Mr. Reed on the record is the fee structure. I had some questions and comments from individual commissioners over the past number of weeks, and perhaps it would be useful, Will, if you wouldn't mind through the chair to explain to the board exactly how the fee structure works, they know exactly what they're paying for in the context of your professional services.
Sam, could you, I missed just
Yeah.
the last bit.
I'll try again.
You to explain
There have been some questions by certain board members to me privately regarding how your fee structure works. There's a proposal, there's language in the proposal which talks about the $12,500 and then before and after 120 days. If you wouldn't mind, could you clarify on the record for the chair to the commissioners what the fee structure is and how you actually charge for your services?
Sure, absolutely.
Thank you.
The fee there that's quoted, the $12,500 is a fee that is contingent upon the successful financing. If the financing doesn't close, that fee would not be assessed. In the event that a financing does not occur, we would likely charge an hourly fee for work that is done in the lead up to a financing. But the hourly fee would not apply to basically would be wrapped into that 12.5 if a financing is executed.
And what would that hourly be? How much?
I believe it was listed in the middle of the contract.
Thank you.
Letter says $250 per hour.
$250 an hour.
Sam, were there any other items?
I just want to make sure that the record reflected what the fee proposal included and what the services included. And one more thing, if I can, for the record also, Ford Associates does not work for and cannot, under the ethical standards that they're beholden to, for any lender or other private source or resource. They are independent in the context of that relationship. They have no relationships. They're with their relationships that would otherwise appear that they're connected to any lender of any kind. So they're your financial advisor. They're an advocate. They're independent, and that's reflected somewhere in the document as well.
And that is correct. We would have a legal fiduciary obligation. We would operate legally. We would not be able to operate outside of your best interest. We do not have any affiliations with any banks or investment banks. We are independent, as Mr. Warren mentioned, and work solely for you.
So I think it's a good idea to have Board Associates with us on our side. I appreciate your feedback. I guess what I'd like to recommend is accepting the Ford Associates proposal with 2 points. One being that it's a $12,500 cap. If it's more, we need an amendment to discuss it. I think that's in there, but I would like you to understand that. And it's really with the successful closing but there will be an hourly fee for your services, which is fine. And it may or may not be with city financing. At this point, we assume it's not with city financing. That's an option.
So was that a motion, Craig, or do you want to?
I'll make that motion.
Do we want to amend that since we're not dealing with the city funding at the moment, or do we keep that as an option?
I'd keep it as an option. Let's be flexible for whatever happens.
So is that acceptable, Mr. Ford? Mr. Reed?
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
I'll second Craig's motion.
Any more discussion? All in favor of accepting the Ford and Associates letter and their agreement, say aye.
As amended.
As amended.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you, Jacob. As amended, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Thank you, Mr. Reed.
Wonderful, thank you all.
Thank you, Will.
Okay, the banking RFP, I think we have a, Craig and Brianne and Jacob are going to all explain this. It's found on page 19 of your agenda packets.
Just open it up, I guess. A few months ago, you all gave direction to put together a banking RFP. We wanted to increase security and maximize our interests. I want to thank Commissioner Ernst for working with me and guiding the process to get this document together. He's been a big help, and of course Jacob and Sam for their review and final recommendations. So we're looking for approval tonight of this document, and we'll begin advertising in August for 60 days.
And if I could add to it, one of the purposes of the banking RFP is not that we're dissatisfied with our current bank. They have been a phenomenal partner. We expect that they will participate in it. It's more to broaden and modernize the services that we currently have. So as we enter this phase of the golf course, one of the components in this is seeking some kind of options on a revolving credit facility, which basically means that if you borrow from the revolver, it's a temporary basis and it's paid back within the year. I don't know what the public entity requirements are, but I think that's something that you'd want to have in an emergency. It's like a giant credit card. We'd also focus on our purchasing card program that the staff is using so that we earn some kind of rebate if we can. And we'll find out the full capabilities of the bank so that if we're using some kind of electronic approval, it'll also give us an opportunity to improve the security around our check stock and how we handle things. So I think we don't know what we'll get from the banks, but in general, I like to look at it as a learning opportunity that will give us an opportunity to either improve our operations with it, as well as some of the services that we're getting at a lower cost.
Jacob, would you?
Madam Chair, I certainly appreciate being included in this discussion, but I would defer to Commissioner Ernst and to Ms. Harms in the context of the fact they really did the lion's share of the work in reviewing this document. Sam and I did have an opportunity to review the document in its latter stages, and from our perspective, it's legally sufficient and meets all the district's needs from a legal perspective.
Thank you. Commissioners, do you have any questions?
Madam Chair, just one question. It's on page 25, it mentions the selection committee. Is that the five of us, or is that you?
I think so.
Okay. All right. Well, I wasn't sure whether you had agreement and cut a separate deal.
We can spell that out as the five commissioners in here. We can update that.
But I want to compliment the two of you. It's a heck of a submission, a lot of work went into this. And, I'm sure we'll benefit tremendously from the work that you made. Is this something we need a motion on?
Well, do we need to establish the date that it's going to be due before we do that?
We're going to put it out on August 5th for 60 days. So we would advertise it every week for 4 weeks and then have the additional month to get responses in.
So what's the latest it comes back? Because we need to get through the military, probably some golf course stuff.
We had it coming back right before the holiday, right before. I'm sorry, no, through September. So it would be right before the end of September, the Friday end of September, the last Friday of September. Or extend it?
Maybe we should go a little longer. I mean, I don't really care when it starts. I'm more interested in the deadline of getting it back. What's your pleasure as far as timelines? Because just thinking ahead of the schedule of all the different things,
We could put out in the beginning of September and get it back in October, the budget's done and finalized.
that's better.
Okay.
And there's a lot in this.
Most of the work's gonna be on the banking part. Then it's just like the golf course. You don't know if you're gonna get one banker response or there's a lot of banks on every corner for it, so you might get 100. So I would caution you that we don't wanna overload ourselves at a time when we need to be focused on the golf course. And I'm okay if you wanna wait, there's no hurry. We have a great bank partner currently, but it's the right thing to do.
Commissioners, do you have any ideas that you would like August or September? Aaron, why don't we start with you? Okay, I agree.
Let's do sometime in October.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so how about by the last meeting in October?
It's gonna go through the holidays at that point, so I don't know if we wanna get it in before Thanksgiving. Schedule it 60 days prior to that, and they can.
No hurry.
If it happens at the end of the year or the beginning of 2020, I don't see, there's no sense of urgency.
Okay, so the last meeting in October, we will submit this.
Yeah, the deadline for the bankers should be to submit prior to the, I don't know, a week or two. But when's our meeting schedule? Do we have it?
Oh, okay, so you guys wanna get them at the last, tell me the date that you wanna have them by, and we'll advertise it 60 days prior.
Let's have it a week before the last meeting.
I'm sorry, for 14.
If the 14th doesn't fall on, how about that?
Okay.
A weekday doesn't.
Jen, do you have that? Yes. Now, do we have a motion?
I was in the process of making a motion that we release the banking services RFP with a due date of October 11th.
October 11th is Friday.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Discussion?
One question, Art. Currently, how many banking relationships do we have? 'Cause we've been careful about spreading our funds around, correct? So what are we objectively looking for? We're not looking to put all of our eggs in the basket. We only get one respondent.
I think our goal is usually to have one, but it might be two, depending on what the services are that we're seeking. So you may find one bank very interested in the credit facility and pricing better. And another bank offering a purchasing card in a better program or have greater capabilities. So I would say we're not making any decision on whether we have 1, 2, or 3, but we'll see what we get when we get it. The goal would always be to try to consolidate which one if we can. Florida Prime is our right now our primary investment source, which provides a phenomenal return, and it is, capable legal. There are different, opportunities with that. So I don't know the answer to that. But
Yeah, I'm just interested in the principal, security, the principal.
Yeah.
Indicate that, and with their improved public depository, I'm not sure what the security is for us putting all of our money in one spot. That's the only question I have for you. I haven't responded. We didn't make a decision, I guess is what we want to do.
Right.
We want to accept it or keep the same banking relationships.
I'm assuming they have to be qualified for secured public funds and work with MERV to make sure that any of them are very well qualified to do so.
And that our funds are fully secured wherever we put them.
Any more discussion? All in favor of the banking RFP, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, like sign. Motion passes. Joanne. Melissa, the artificial turf proposed change order on page 40 of your agenda packet, please.
Good evening, Commissioners. Thank you for your time this evening. I have 2 change orders for consideration for the artificial turf project at Factory Park. The first on page 40 is during the demolition phase, it was discovered that some of the wiring for the scoreboards, the pedestrian lighting, And the field lighting itself were varied at 6 to 8 inches deep in some instances, and also some running across the fields themselves. And 6 to 8 inches does not meet code. So the $38,000, $672 change order would do a couple of things. One, it would reroute all of those wires to the exterior of the fields. So if there was issues in the future, we would not have to remove any of the turf. And second of all, it would also do what we will be required to do, which is to vary those that wire at the code requirement. You have some pictures there just showing you some of the cords that the wires and how little they were actually dangerously below the surface. I will, if you'd like me to go over the second one too, because then I do have in your folders, I placed an impact that this would have on the budget. So if you would like me to real quick go over the second change order, and then you can consider them both either together or individually. So on the page, well, let me touch on that one thing. One thing I would like to do on that is there were, you saw a memo in your packet where there were 3 different contingencies available in the approved budget, and the budget was accepted. There was a $160,000 owner's contingency, a $10,000 electrical contingency, and a $20,000 permitting contingency. If you do accept the change order, the electrical change order for $38,672, I would recommend making a transfer of the $10,000 electrical into the general contingency just as a line item change, a matter to just secure things for our auditors and for the construction company to keep that all clean. And if approved, there is a letter in there for our chair to sign to approve that. On page 49 is another change order request for the turf field, an amount of $34,836. This is a change for the protective railing and a grading change order. I put in there what happened was when you were considering all levels, and I put an explanation from our architect engineer as to why the fields were designed to be graded the way they are. And basically what you have is all different levels of grading out there, from the parking lots to where the buildings are, to where the fields are, and the walkways are. So in order to coordinate all of that and have it flow smooth in together, they set it at the level that it is currently, and it is in the plans because it was the most economically efficient way to do that. This will still be economically efficient with this, but what this would do is it did 2 things the way it's drawn. One, it provided a 6-inch drop from the edge of the playing field surface to where the concrete pad is in front of the bleachers on all 3 fields. Obviously, we don't want a 6-inch drop there because that's dangerous if kids are playing and they fall off of that. So I'm proposing that we put a railing in front of that, and we will pad the railing, but we put a railing in front of that to protect them. Now, keep in mind, there is still the 10-foot runoff from the edge of the actual playing surface to this. So it's not like you go, what I'm saying is you have the edge of the playing line, the sideline of the field, you have a minimum of at least another 10 feet, and then that's where your field turf ends and your concrete starts. So it's not like that railing is bumped right up against the field. There is the safety zone in there still. In addition, in discussing that, I asked how that would affect the sidelines of the fields. And they said that there was a sharp incline going from the 6 inches of the fields down to where the playground turf would be. And I said, well, can we get a lawn chair on these comfortably? And the answer was no. So the other part of this is regrading that so that that slope will not be quite as severe, and that spectators can sit and families can sit with their lawn chairs on that and not be affected negatively.
Commissioners, do you have any questions from Ms. Dawson?
I will add that real quick also, if you look at your contingency in your folders, I put where this would put us for our contingencies. With a $160,000 contingency, if owner's contingency, if you did the contingency transfer from electrical into that, you would still have $35,379.13 remaining in your owner's contingency, and you would still have $20,000 remaining in your permitting contingency. In addition, the demolition is, for all intents and purposes, complete. So I've asked what are the future change orders looking like. There should be no other major change orders coming. We did ask, like the electrical one, I asked them to hold it until we had the impact for the northeast field as well. so that they wouldn't be coming with the price for a southeast and southwest field change order and then a northeast. So this is all combined into one change order request.
Madam Chair, I'd like to make a motion to accept the change order as. Second.
We have two change orders though, so, can we do them?
Preferably to do separately, if you will, Madam Chair.
That's right. Okay, so which change order would you like to start with, Craig?
Well, how would you like me to describe them?
You can just say change order number 5 and change order number 5 will be electrical, and change order number 6 could be the railing.
Okay, I'd make a motion to accept change order number 5, which is the electrical, and change order 6, which is the rail.
We're gonna do
Oh,
one
that's right.
one at a time, one at a
Okay,
time.
change
So
order.
we need a second for change order number 5. Okay, any discussion? All in favor of accepting change order number 5 for $38,672? Please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, like sign? Okay,
That's not,
what's your question now?
and I'm not sure there's any other solution, because I have a lot of confidence in what you looked at was. 10 feet coming off the field to the railing is 2 steps, that's sweet. Maybe 3. So you understand what I'm saying?
We understand, Melissa, should you?
We've looked at every possibility, because trust me, I pitched a fit, and that's why you have a written explanation of why it was designed this way, because I was not happy with the design and asked for an explanation of that as well. And we have looked extensively for solutions to this. And there is that drop off from the cement up to that. There's not enough room to level that down then, because then you're going into your safety area and leveling it down.
Melissa, can this area, the railing be padded?
Oh, the intent would be to plan it. Now, I will say the padding is not included in this, because they would be, as these are quoted, it is a special made railing, so we would get them here and get them and then put the padding on.
You know, I think that's our only option to do.
And I also, just so you know, on the on the southeast field, there'll be a lot more room than 10 feet, because that's the big field. So that is the minimum amount of feet you have there.
So mine have to shut.
Okay, we need a motion for a change order number 6 for $34,836.
We all said aye. Yes, I make a motion for change order number 6.
Second.
Any more discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Mr. Ernst, you have to.
Madam Chair, I apologize. I do have to.
It's
Birthday, you guys.
Happy birthday. Don't forget your cookie. You got your cookie in there.
You know, the soccer player in my house is the one who eat that by herself. So
Thank you for your time, Commissioners, and happy birthday, Commissioners.
Could you do the approval of the invoices first?
That would
Since
be
you are
good.
the treasurer?
yes.
We have an amended invoice.
I would like to make a motion for the approval of invoices of $80,025.87.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Motion passes, Joanne. Thank you, Craig, and have a happy birthday.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Okay, reports and discussions. Our interim executive director, Ms. Harms.
Commissioners, I want to thank everybody here tonight that was at the ribbon cutting, and especially the rec services staff who helped us out with that and putting it together. Thank you all. Amy and her team, especially events crew, were just absolutely amazing. Monica was a big help. We had some good numbers that day, and we had some photos playing beforehand, so all of you who attended, Mr. Thayer, Mr. Starbuck, everybody who came out, thank you for that. We do have another ribbon cutting to start thinking about, and that is at Patch Reef. So some food for thought. We did the ribbon cutting here after the building had been open for a while. The southeast and southwest fields are scheduled to be done August 20th. So we can have our ribbon cutting then, or we can, because those fields will then be opened up to the public, or we wait until after September 10th when the final field is done. However, the 2 fields will already be in use at that point. We can kind of think about that. I know Craig's trying to get out of here.
Sure, I'll get the checks with you.
Thank you.
August 24th, we can think?
Certainly can.
Everybody available on the 24th?
I would still recommend that we make it tentative. We vote on that simply because we still have to track on the progress of these depending on with the rain season. We're so far so good. We're still on track for the 20th though.
Okay, so we'll just tentatively say the 24th and start looking at that.
Okay.
Mr. Gordon, do we need a motion on that?
It'd be helpful just to create a record
Madam Chairman,
direction.
Mike made a motion that we have the ribbon cutting for the new fields at Patch on August 24th.
We hear a second.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, like sign. Joanne, please note that Mr. Ernst had to leave.
And I'm almost afraid to say this out loud because it will make it not true, but it looks like we're gonna have this building and project wrapped up by August 9th. Fingers crossed.
What a great day.
That's all my reports tonight.
Okay. Wayne has just stepped out. He's going to do a golf course update for us, and I'm sure he's. Yeah, we could do Sam and Jacob.
We'll be very quick, I promise.
Take as much time as you want. Okay, we're gonna do the general counsel. We'll do the general counsel while you get set up.
Madam Chair and Commissioners, as a reminder, the second meeting in August will include a presentation by Jacob and I on sunshine, public records, and ethics, a topic which I know you embrace and very carefully measure from time to time, but we look forward to making that presentation. Commissioner Wright will be available at the second meeting, and we welcome the opportunity very much. We also hope that if you have any questions, that you can jot them down before the meeting, and we're happy to keep that presentation at the time.
That's the 19th of August.
Yes. Just one more reference point, and Jake may be able to answer best to me, but Petrikowski matter, August the 1st is the deadline. We have not physically seen any specific action.
I actually had Melissa drive by there and everything is still out there.
So not yet knowing that, we actually have Tracy DiCarlo from our office drive by there tomorrow just to get an insight on what's happening as well. The August 1 date has very significant penalties, so.
So we also, just to follow up on that item, we did put a call into Mr. Petrikowski's counsel today, waiting to hear back to get an update from them. Brianne's comments at first, we've heard there's been no progress. We were going to have Mr. Carlo right after tomorrow. So we will pull the stipulation and agreement in the judgment in the district's favor to re-review all the district options come August 1st, if and when the defendant has failed to comply with the order which he previously committed. One other just quick item, if I may, just for the record, on July 18th of this year, the district was served with another lawsuit on Mika Romero. The case is Houston versus both the city of Boca Raton and the district. The allegations in the case pertain to a occurrence which happened on January 3rd, 2017 at Sugar Sand Park. It involves a gentleman who is pitching to his child on the son's baseball team from behind a protective netting. The allegation has to deal with a baseball that ricocheted off a metal pole and apparently injured the gentleman. The matter has been handed over to the district's insurance defense counsel, Johnson and Selmo. We're coordinating with counsel to provide the appropriate defenses. I assume the city's also been served, and I would imagine that the city attorney's office is preparing their responses as well. We'll continue to coordinate with outside counsel to respond appropriately to the complaint.
Thank you, Jacob.
Thank you for listening.
Thank you. He just disappeared. You're hard to disappear, right? This is a golf course update by Mr. Brandweight. Thank you, Wayne.
Thank you. Good evening, commissioners. So for this meeting, given what everything that's been going on in the past few weeks, I thought it's a long time since we've really had an update, a proper update as to what's going on, and I think it's a good time to go back a little bit and just see where we've come, how far we've come, where we are right now, and just give you some comparisons as well as an update or a summary on the NGF report. So, just to go back to the very beginning, we really started this process. I think you can see that is the actual slide from the very first presentation that we did to you. And clearly there was a road set from the very beginning that is what that is what you were looking for. Mr. Koski did, I remember watching the video very clearly where he stated to the city council members that's, and there you see his quote, that you will provide them with the best product possible. I don't believe that ever meant the most expensive product possible, or anything else other than what it says there. So to have a look at it, to go back and understand the amount of work that has been done by ourselves and our team as a whole, that is enabled to get us to this point. I think many of you were part of this. We started with several public input meetings. At the same time, we did an intensive site review and inventory and found that there was absolutely nothing of any use other than the tunnel that is under Clintmore Road. Car paths, any kind of infrastructure was absolutely unusable. Not because we wanted to buy something new, but because it had been built in 1969, I think. The irrigation system was the original irrigation system, which is designed to maybe last 30 years, 35 years. And so there was nothing salvageable from the site. So essentially, this project began from absolute scratch. We had, I think many of you are members of other golf clubs. You've seen renovations. A renovation is a totally different process to what we're undergoing here. And that's why I think you've obviously seen the amount of infrastructure that has to be developed to support the project. Our land planner did extensive review of permitting requirements, researched previous approvals, regulations, and property zoning. We did extensive engineering study of the site with our engineer, Jeff Schnauz. Our environmental company, EW Consultants, did a site assessment as well as a listed species survey and completed that. We also did a hotel feasibility to help us as we were moving towards understanding where all of the amenities and components of the project would go. We interviewed previous Ocean Breeze staff to understand some of the problems that were on the site that they encountered and that we needed to avoid. Sorry, the word's gone, but the boundary and topographical study was done, and that enabled us to actually begin design of the golf course. But as that was ongoing, we created, I think, the 4 master plan options for you. I think that was quite an extensive process, again, with a lot of public input, and you chose the one that we have today. And that has not changed since then. Once we had that master plan in place, we could begin the detailed golf course design, which is now complete, along with the golf course drainage plan and an irrigation plan as well for the golf course. Those plans have been reviewed and approved by our engineer. And in addition to that, we also did a tree removal and location plan, which involves going out onto the site, and we marked every single tree out there, identified it on a CAD drawing, and we had an arborist come out as well as our landscape architects, and determined which trees could be moved, which trees could be saved, and which trees we had to eliminate that wouldn't survive any removal. We've created a landscape plan for the golf course. And recently we have completed the concept plans for the maintenance facility, teaching facility, clubhouse, halfway house, restrooms, and the pump house. We also have completed now a detailed budget study on costs for all the buildings, except in the halfway house and the clubhouse. As we're still unsure where we're going with that at this point. So that's on hold. I think in your packets, we provided some drawings of the teaching facility. I don't really want to, I don't know, it's up to you, but I don't know if you want to go into the detail of them tonight. I thought maybe let you.
Maybe when Mr. Ernst is here, we could go through this in a detail manner.
So I thought maybe just give them to you tonight and then we can go through them in detail another time. But
Maybe on, Aaron will be on the second meeting in August.
sure, anytime. But at least you have them, and if you would take a look, that would be helpful for any comments. So the training center, we have the restrooms and the halfway house, the pump station, and so we've got those concepts of design. Other infrastructure costs that are not yet designed is the tunnel. Obviously, we put that on hold at this point. We have had a quote from our structural engineer, McNamara Sylvia, and they have gotten a quote from one of their contractors who, so we understand pretty much what those costs are going to be, but the design not ready to move forward yet at this point. The tunnel does affect some extensive rerouting of utilities across Northwest 2nd Avenue, as well as understanding what we do with the traffic in the event that we do decide to go the tunnel. So because we don't understand any of these elements, we put the tunnel on hold until further notice. So all of those buildings, I think you can see the graph up here, the first estimate that we created and provided to yourselves and to the city. And so that first estimate, that first column are those numbers. The detailed budget is, we've had these drawings from our architects reviewed and in detail and costed out. And you can see, I think, we're within a range of $180,000 difference to the better. I think it's a variance of about 6% on those buildings. So I don't believe in talking to anybody anymore. We don't need to say we're not sure what the costs are. We are sure what the costs are. We're very close with our costs. Obviously, there are things that can impact them as we go forward, delays, increase in prices, etc. But I think we've arrived at a good place.
Might I have one question?
Sure.
On the teaching center, that's the learning center. You've got a figure there. What kind of design do you have on that building?
That's it's in the package there, yeah. I think it's about almost 4,000 square feet.
Thank you.
So this is a page out of a magazine called Golf Inc., which is an industry magazine for the golf industry, obviously. And there is a chart, and I don't know, can you zoom in on this? No. Okay. So anyway, it's very simple. All we got to do is have a look, and what they're saying. What?
Crazy.
Oh, that's great. Almost.
How's that?
Awesome. Thank you very much. So I think you can all see now that these are estimated costs according to the Golf Course Builders Association. Obviously, the cost is much more, the costs are more extensive, but they summarize this into a table very nicely for us. And you see Florida, new 18-hole golf construction at about $8.5 million. That's really all we need to say. So I think we know that we're very much within the ballpark with our numbers. Or should I say, we knew we were in the very much in the ballpark, but that substantiates it further. Can you pull it back down? Yeah. Thank you. So moving on to the cost of the golf course, we've covered the cost of the infrastructure. In looking at these, I've highlighted I've broken out our construction budget, and I've highlighted elements that can can see some substantial savings. Obviously, those, I think, as Tommy spoke to you quite a while ago, a couple of months ago now, all the savings come with a trade. And at some point, and we face this on every project that we do, you get to a point where we have an amount established for your budget, and then you begin to value engineer it. Obviously, it's a different situation with the city, but if you're in the private world and you have a contract and you can sit down with the contractor and continue to negotiate and have a lot of back and forth, you typically go through this process fairly early. So with everything that is going on, this is maybe not the right time, but we're getting very close to it. But I wanted to highlight the fact to you that we started this project not looking at a dollar number. And that was thanks to you. You let us be creative. You let us develop the best project possible with a really good team. And so, but ultimately, you always do arrive at a number. And obviously, with the city being very vocal about the number, I think it's probably that what I would like is for you to have the information that we have. So, although we spoke about it a while ago, an item like earthwork, which is high. Can you make that maybe a little bit?
Really testing me today. See how often I have to get this.
Okay, so earthwork is currently at $845,000. We see that there's an option for about $110,000 save in there, and that can be brought about by on the southwest parcel of the property. That area there, we know where we can eliminate some of the dirt that we shave there. Would we like to have the dirt to make the golf course a little bit better? Yes, but it is an area that we see that we can generate some savings potentially in the future. The next thing is greens USGA specification. Golf greens today have a standard by which they are built, and it's developed by the USGA green section. And through many years of research, they have come up with a method and particular materials that are used in a certain way to build a green to where you create a false water table. So a green is typically 14 inches deep. The water goes down. Before it hits the drainage, the water comes back up and it provides water to the roots from the bottom. And it creates that perched water table. And so that has proven to be the most efficient, long-term way of building a golf green that lasts, as I say, longer and gives you less problems. You have less maintenance problems. The other way is a California green method, which would save about $200,000 here, where you don't have all of the rock, gravel, and stone in the bottom of the green, and it still functions. Many people do it across the country, but it's not as scientific method as the USGA greens, but it's an option for us to consider. We've used it, we haven't used it, and the problem in a place like this is you don't know until 15 years time how whether you're going to have to redo your greens or whether they will still continue to give you some life 20, 25 years. So the next item is you'll see two items here, which is bunkers, which is a normal construction of a bunker. It's basically a hole in the ground, it's compacted, it's drained, and then the sand is placed in the bunker. And typically what happens with that method is that when it rains, your soil underneath mixes with the very expensive sand that you place in the bunker, and that starts to deteriorate. It eventually affects the drainage within the bunker, and your bunker becomes compromised. The other thing as well is the fact that you have, every time it rains, bunker faces, bunker faces can wash because the faces are steeper. So that sand washes down. So you can imagine Friday night it rains, Saturday morning the superintendent's calling these guys early in the morning, come out overtime, push all that sand back, get the course playable for everybody that's coming out on a Saturday to play golf. So those are the problems. Sorry,
Just stop you right there. Is there some way that you prevent that from happening? So is that traditionally, I know some traps I've seen that have some kind of a epoxy bottom to them.
Correct.
And also which keeps the shape of the bunker as well.
That's right. That's very true. Yeah. So what has now been developed in the last few years is a very porous material. It's a concrete. It's basically a concrete material which is sprayed with a polymer, and so you're basically laying a bed of concrete in the bunker, and the water is able to flow right through that unimpeded, and so your drainage is not affected at all. Your sand is prevented from touching the subsoil and compromising the drainage, and also it holds the face in place. Even on, not that we would have very, very steep faces, but even on very steep faces, it holds that in place. So the labor savings over whatever period of time are substantial. They really are. Especially here, given the thunderstorms that you face on a daily basis. So what we did is we added these, and there's basically two makes. One is a billy bunker, the other one is capillary concrete. And so that's an extra $200,000 that you have to spend, or you can eliminate to save $200,000. Obviously, the trade-off is your long-term maintenance, short and long-term maintenance costs. We have an amount of $814,000 for cart paths, and those cart paths are made up partially of concrete and partial concrete screenings. Concrete screenings are cheaper. They look great, but you have a problem when it rains. They can be washed, which means they need to be put back in place, compacted so that you don't lose that material. And then the problem is with that is that when it does rain, you can't necessarily go out on those paths if they're too wet. Whereas if you have concrete all around, you're always able to go out and play golf, stay on the cart path, and just walk from the cart path onto the golf course, even though it may be still wet from rain. So, you know, in eliminating the concrete, we would save the amount of $445,000. Again, it comes with a trade-off, another significant trade-off. We do have an amount in here, equipment rental, which is it's an amount that allows us to go out and in case we want to do something different or add to it. We have a small budget that we can rent some equipment and get that done without creating change orders, etc. So the last item is grass, and we have had lots of deliberation with two different types of grass. One being the typical Bermuda that many of you play on today, and then the other being a Pascaline grass, which they have out at Osprey Point and many other clubs in Florida. We could debate the differences between them for 2 days and not come to any successful conclusion here. But suffice to say, there are good things for both, and there are bad things for both. Now early on when we did this budget several months ago, we hadn't made up our mind about which one we definitely wanted. There are some new Bermuda turf grasses that are in play, and we really wanted to see how those were proven out in the field before we actually made a decision or a recommendation for you. The difference between those two grasses, the Pascaline, is another $583,000. But I think and Rick is very familiar with it. He knows the good and the bad. Sorry? And the ugly. Exactly. And so, at another time, I think what I'd like to do is just, whether we have a special meeting or when you're not so focused on a lot of things, is to really sit down and we'll walk you through each and every item here. But what I wanted to do today was to show you that, yes, we can reduce the cost of the golf course. There's no question we can. Anybody can reduce the cost of the golf course. Everybody's got an uncle who's in the construction business. They can also reduce the cost of your golf course to whatever you want it to be, as long as you pay it. So, I think if you look at that, there's a savings of $1.65 million. And so that's pretty much the line items all the line items that we have that are particularly related to the construction of the golf course are shown here. The one other aspect that is not included in here, because it's not included in the actual golf course budget, is landscaping. And we have a significant landscaping budget. That was always the intent. Because you're surrounded by condominiums and homes, the idea was, what can we do to soften the hardscape around the golf course? The golf course is also on the road. It's adjacent to Flintmore as well as I-95, and we know that they will not build a wall along I-95, so that has to be vegetated. And so, and we also know that Boca Raton has a very stringent landscaping review process, and so we allowed for a fair amount of landscaping for the golf course. I think it's probably $1 million for the golf course itself, and just over $300,000 for the east side. So that in every golf project that we do, it's really the first place that people look to cut back. It does give us an option. It doesn't mean we have to have less landscaping, but we may not have plants that are 5 foot tall. They may be 3 foot tall or 2 feet tall. So as we get into that and we go through the landscape plan, we need to review that, discuss it, and have everybody participate in what it's going to look like on day one, and so that everybody understands what the implications of either a cut or not a cut to that budget would be. Moving on to the National Golf Foundation study. Just to go back a little bit, I think prior to us being selected for the project, I know that you had commissioned National Golf Foundation to do a study in 2016. That study was based on 27 holes. The range, they erroneously figured could remain where it was, but they based all of their assumptions on the fact that they would do 27 holes. They did a comprehensive study of the surrounding golf market, and I think that's where you use that as a basis for the purchase of the property or the approval of the project. So there was an update in 2017 as we worked together with the National Golf Foundation to develop all the amenities within the project. We needed to better understand exactly how all of that affected the project, because essentially what they studied was 18 holes of golf, a small driving range, and a clubhouse. And obviously with the new master plan that you selected, we had a lot more elements. We had different programming around those elements. So they updated their feasibility study. Recently, with another further change, not really a change, but an alteration to the or elimination of some of the infrastructure to the project. The golf course has always remained the same, and the east side has always remained the same in all of their reports. But with the removal of the clubhouse, the addition of the temporary clubhouse, the relocation of the temporary clubhouse onto the west side, the removal of the halfway house, it was best to really understand how what kind of revenues you would be looking at under that scenario. So that it's a fairly large report or update. But essentially, I'll give you the highlights. The new clubhouse location does not affect the income or rounds predicted for 18 holes of golf, primarily because the temporary clubhouse is located right next to the first tee. So there's no inconvenience, there's no impact on the experience, on the golf experience. They continue to believe that the club should be positioned the same, just below Deer Creek and certainly above Boca Muni, Delray, and other similar courses. They continue to say that Boca has high operating expenses. And what that really means is if you have high operating expenses and you develop or you create a golf course at a much lower cost, that is not at a level that can support those high expenses, you can't create the revenue to support those higher expenses. So you have to have a product that will support those expenses. I think if and that is borne out by Osprey Point and Boca Muni. Boca Muni is far cheaper, very inexpensive. It's a great place to play, but it's nowhere near what Osprey Point is. Osprey is expensive. It's an expensive place to play. It's difficult to play. It's hard to park there, and so, but it shows you what golfers want. They are prepared to pay for something that gives them a better experience and provides better value to them. Their net operating income is still 15 to 20%. that will be used for ongoing capital costs. There's a 4 to 5% impact on 18-hole rounds, a 20% reduction on peak par 3 rounds, and a 50% on range revenue from the range. And essentially that's really created by the fact that we've moved the clubhouse away, the fact that we are not at this point contemplating a larger clubhouse. So those are the essential effects to them. Those effects are somewhat offset by the fact that you don't need as many key management personnel and some other expenses that would be incurred by operating a larger clubhouse. So I think in summary, their total net operating expenses were down from the 2017 report from 500,000 to 250,000 at stabilization, which is year 3. And we had asked them to do a study that could, or to include in their study, where is the break-even point? And that is shown at about 55,000 rounds of golf with average revenue, not average green fee, average revenue. So somebody comes there, they play golf, they eat food, they drink, they hit balls at the range. That total revenue should come out to about an average of $40 per person. At that rate, you break even. I think it's fair to comment that at no point have we haven't begun to discuss any rates at this time. And I know that the NGF are merely providing a guide to us of where fees can, where the high point of fees can be, and now where the break-even point of fees should be. So the National Golf Foundation remains, they remain committed to the original idea or a projection of winter rates being $59 for residents, $89 for non-residents. Those are not changed from the previous report, as are the summer rates of $31 or $44 for non-residents. And I think it's important for people in looking at this report and other reports and other golf courses. The biggest mistake that I've seen is somebody will take a high rate at Boca Muni and then take a summer rate at some other golf course and say, why is such a big discrepancy? I think, as in any case, you have to compare apples to apples, and I believe that it is it's always been your intent not to utilize this golf course as a money-making venture, but to certainly break even and provide residents with the best value possible. Just in closing, there is, and Rick went through this in detail with you the other day, some of these costs, but it's, I thought maybe to give you a good visual and a better, maybe an easier understanding of all of these elements, I've broken out to what they actually did at Winter Park 9. I went up, I visited the golf course, I had a look at it. It's located in a very nice area. It's nothing special, but it's bounded by several roads. You cross the road, I think 6 times or something when playing golf there. But it's quaint. It's quaint. It's surrounded by very high-end homes. And so they've protected any further development by I think, establishing this as a historical golf course. I don't know. Just saying, but that's what they've done. Essentially, from what I can see and when speaking to their head of recreation, essentially what they did is they did not redesign the golf course. The tee stayed in the same place, the green stayed in the same place. I'm sure they moved some bunkers around. They did add irrigation, although it's not what we call a wall-to-wall system. There are some holes in it that don't get water, and that will lead to maintenance problems in the long term. But they did upgrade the irrigation system, and then they reshaped some of the areas. They did not install drainage into the property. They had no landscaping to install, and they also did not have any trees to remove. They had no storm drainage costs involved, and I believe that they did partial USGA green specs. They did not use the billy bunkers. Cart paths, they do have cart paths, but minimal, just around the tees. And you can see that, you know, in terms of our budget, we were looking at Pastel, and they've used Bermuda. I think really what this shows, you know, is a total of the golf course construction costs spread out over that acreage, with their costs $60,000 an acre, and ours at $42,000 an acre. It's not an ideal comparison, but it does, you know, I think it does give you an indication of the value that you ultimately get by installing all of those elements. I think that, you know, that project maybe is such a small area that you can get away with some things, but we certainly wouldn't recommend that to you here. That's it.
Wait, I think there's a typo. Wasn't there 1.2 million instead of 2.1?
Yes, you are right there. Thank you. I think yeah, that's correct. You're quite correct now.
8.784, is that for 18 holes?
What's that?
The 8.8,
Yes,
so did you just double, did you mean to double their 9?
I didn't.
Oh,
It's
Okay.
a typo.
so if they were to do 2.9, it would have been 2.4, right?
Yes.
So, and so the 8.784, has the city received that number? I mean, have we?
No, we're working off the same number that we always with.
So should you resend those numbers to them to make sure that they know that that's the 18 holes cost?
Well, it's not just that cost though, there are other costs that are involved that Winter Park didn't have to consider.
No, I understand that. I'm just thinking about the request for information that they put out for the 8 million for 18 holes. So if they're gonna be comparing it to what we already have,
Yeah,
right?
and Wayne, and I told Mayor Singer that Wayne is willing to help them with the RFI and speak to all of them, and sit down at length with this kind of information.
I think what Aaron's trying to say is that if they're doing an RFI and they're looking for an $8 billion cap on that, we need to let them know that we're in that same general ballpark.
Right, exactly.
Right.
Yeah, they don't wanna reinvent the wheel, so if we're there and they get information back saying 8, 9, $10 million, we're in that range. So,
I think that's what you've contended all along, but you know, when you start taking away things, you know, the sustainability issues, Wayne, we want to make sure that the city knows that the number that you've got here, that 8.784, is a pretty decent cost estimate for the construction of the 18 holes. Right. Now, you mentioned the landscaping. That's in addition to this 8.7.
I know, I added this in, so that we can make that comparison.
Okay, so that's a pretty solid number what we're talking about getting, and I think it's important that we reinforce that. You know, if we have a PowerPoint that we can give to them that shows the examples that you created, it might be beneficial to us to keep that information flowing. So
yeah, that's,
yeah.
I think that's why Wayne has the videographer here, is to give them the complete idea. Rick did
Yeah, just a question, Wayne, does that 8.784 include the short course?
No.
Because you've got 200 acres.
But
down
yeah,
there. And a couple of slides ago, you know, we started at 7.2 million, and then with the optional reductions, you were at 5.6 million on it. I thought that was sort of the comparable 18-hole Andy Thompson Challenge, 8 million sort of.
right. I think, you know, you can call it a challenge or whatever it is. It's somewhat misguided. And I think we all realize that. I mean, you can throw any number out there and anybody will do it for that number. We'll do it for that number. All we need to do is take a whole bunch of stuff out and we'll be there. We wouldn't recommend it, but I think,
But wasn't the number the 5.6 or even the 7.2
Can you
about
go
3
back to
slides
that
ago?
slide?
yeah,
That's the real number comparable.
and they have that number.
Yeah.
That was in the document that the city was presented.
Right, but like you said, let's reiterate those numbers so they can be clear to see them before, you know,
Sure.
to have them with all your.
If we've had this presentation, the numbers are still the same, it doesn't hurt to just cover much of the additional. Here's where we still are. I just want you to know, we looked at this and as Aaron said, keep the communication going with the council.
Very much.
We don't know where this is gonna go, but if we can give them as much information as possible, I think we continue to do so.
Right.
So who is in direct communication with the council at this point? Is it Art, because he's the project manager? Has he been in direct communication with the council members?
Brianne has been.
Brianne. Okay.
Wayne, I just wanted to read this one part from the book from the National Golf Foundation. The BNGC golf course will include a mix of amenities that should be very appealing to the local Boca market and is consistent with every other successful public golf facilities. The facility allows a true something for everyone, offering, allowing golfers to grow from the range and practice area to the par 3 course to the front 9 and to front 9 easier and to the full 18 holes of the primary golf course. I think that's really what we're trying to develop with, you know, the east side especially. And I think that addresses somewhat the concerns that, you know, Councilman Thompson had, that, you know, being something for the entire community. And I think that speaks to the fact that, you know, we've got a design that's going to be playable from 6 to 80.
Absolutely.
So, and I think that's important to emphasize that. And the council does have this golf foundation. That was the basis of a lot of their discussion at their council meeting too.
Right. The key is to really read it in depth. And I have spoken to Richard Singer, and he'd be happy to, you know, do at any time that the council members were ready to talk to him, he'd be happy to come to one of their meetings and they can ask him all the questions in the world. And he'd be happy to go through everything.
Who's Richard Singer?
Sorry, the head of the NGO, National. Thanks. So he'd be happy to do that. Because I think that is important. There is that business side. And I think a lot of it's been lost. The first report was so thick, nobody read it. The second report was smaller, but a lot of it referred back to the previous report. So, you know, if it's possible, it would be beneficial to everybody to understand what they've done and how they've come up with the numbers. And not only that, you know, they're an organization that I think they do all the military golf courses throughout the United States. They oversee all of the economics of their golf courses. So they have a wealth of knowledge and information from that to public golf courses to what's happening in Florida right now that they can share with the council members.
I'd also like to ask Brianne to send that video that you shared with us with that gentleman, I think he was from Ireland, that he said, he was saying, he was describing everything that
Oh yes,
was designed.
the head of the Royal Nations. They're very much so, yeah.
Does anybody have any other questions for Wayne?
I think that Councilman Thompson, he talked a lot about the 18 holes, about the price of it, the fact that I guess now it's going to be a regulation size golf course, and that he wanted it for everybody to play golf at. But he didn't talk a lot about the east side. And I think this is really two projects. You shouldn't be looking at one side versus the other, because they are so intertwined. If you just look at the 18 holes as an operating facility, and you don't utilize that east side, you merely have 18 holes, which Deer Creek has, which other golf courses have. So what makes you special? Nothing makes you stand out in the marketplace. So I think it's really important for everybody to really understand that this is two projects in one, and that enables you to reach all of the members in the community for all sorts of activities.
Thank you, Wayne.
Thank you.
Commissioner report, Sarah. We're gonna miss you next meeting. In the next school place. No one. I just wanted to reiterate that I did vote for the raise and millage because I do want to hear from the public. So I hope that you do all come and have your friends, whether they want the millage increase or they don't. I hope they come to voice their opinion on it. And spread it around as much as I can, because I've been stopping people on the street randomly today asking if they want a millage increase to pay for a golf course. So as much input as possible would be great. And apparently I'm not the only one who isn't all for it either. So yeah, I just, that's about it, I think. Steve?
First, I want to thank everybody for their expressions of sympathy and support. Over the last week, it really meant a lot. This is my other family, and you guys mean a lot to me, even if you don't laugh at my jokes. I would also like to go back and just touch for a second on this report and just point out that an 18-hole golf course is not a golf course for everybody. It's not a family, it's not geared for family entertainment. It's geared for somebody who wants to play 18 holes of golf and really doesn't care where they play. When we had a meeting with that Mike set up with the consultants, one thing they pointed out to me was that what makes a successful golf course in this day and age is having something for everybody. So just to put up 18 holes, whatever the cost is, whether it's $2 million or $5 million or $10 million, I think we're consigning ourselves to the same problems that Boca Muni has. Okay, it's 18 holes and it's got a driving range and a practice course. And I'm not disparaging any of the staff there. I think you guys, under the circumstances, do a hell of a job, but you're restricted in what you can do. But that is what we'll end up with. And to build yet another money-losing course just doesn't make any sense. And also as far as millage rate, if I had my druthers, I'd go back to the rollback. But we have to look at it from a realistic standpoint. And also, as Aaron said, I'd like to hear from everybody, good, bad, or indifferent. If you're for it, tell me. If you're against it, tell me. And tell me why. Tell your friends to show up at our meetings, at our public hearings. Please, 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 let us know what you want. When you tell us what you want, that's what we will do. That's our charge. And that's all about.
Interesting.
I think we're hearing what they want, Steve. So loud and clear as far as how we get there is the difficulty. I think, Rick, you may have described this as not a golf course, but a golf park. Where there's something for everybody, whether it's a putting area, the learning center, the short course. I like those concepts that just go in so well together. Having grandkids and having taken them to places like this, I think it would be well used. The question I have, Madam Chairman, is having approved the forward engagement, maybe ask this to Sam or Jake, are we able to move forward with looking at private funding now, having engaged them and getting Art and I think probably our treasurer involved in seeking out those opportunities as far as that? Good. So, with that in mind, I would like to suggest that if they haven't already considered it, that maybe Art and Craig and the person we talked to earlier start going that direction. And I kind of like to have Art to start developing a plan, a business plan for us on the golf course, or trying to get our arms around the financing and how we're going to go in the direction that we need to get this done as fast as we possibly can within the confines of our revenue. So,
Is that a motion?
if I need to make that as a motion, I'll make that as a motion that Craig and Art get started with the full organization toward funding.
Wait for a second.
Second.
Discussion? Any questions? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Motion passes.
No, I'm headed north to Nashville to visit my two grandkids, my new grandkids. So it'll just be a weekend, but I have them in mind when I'm thinking about when they come down and they're older. We're going to go to this golf course and play the short course first, and gradually get them up. Hope I'm still around when they're able to play the championship.
I hope so too. I have just a few things. I've been keeping track of the emails, yay and nay. It's over, I believe it's up to like 48 yay to increase the millage and 6 were opposing it. So, if you want to keep track of your constituents that way too.
Actually, what's the percentage that live in Boca Chica of those?
We don't pay taxes.
Sorry, I'm just asking.
Don't separate it like that.
I'm just asking. It's the majority that live in Boca Chica that are saying yay. So I'm looking towards outside the neighborhood to get feedback. That's all I want.
Well, I got some from people who don't live in Boca Chica. I mean, quite a few, because I know them personally. They sent me, not realizing that I was the chairman of the Beach and Park District, and they were very adamant that raise the millage. I moved here. I want a golf course. So, I moved to Boca. Okay, great. Sounds good. Something else that might impact our budget that I think we need to direct our council to is to find out where our CRA money is going to go, because we've satisfied, the bond's been satisfied, so now it needs to go to Parks and Recreation. Well, there are no Parks and Recreation in the CRA, and Steve, you and I have a responsibility to the people who don't live in the city of Boca. We need to find out where that money is going, and if they have to carve out a portion of it or redirect it to some other obligation we have with the city. But Sam and Jacob, if you could start looking into that, please. And let's see what else. The needs assessment survey. Michael, do we have any updates of when we're going to get that survey?
They're currently still working on evaluating the feedback they received from the commissioners as well as council. We're in the process of doing SWOT analyses with all our individual sections. I believe they're going to be in town talking to our team. I think August 2nd is the date. And at that time, we'll be talking about the potential of starting to vet those questions.
Thank you, Michael. That's great.
We're definitely on schedule.
Good. Commissioners, do you think we need any additional budget funds to calendar at this point. You good with what we've got?
What do we have next for?
We've got 2 in August, but Aaron won't be here for one of them. And one definitely in September, but then we have to schedule after September 11th, we have to schedule the second public hearing. So, no, we can't do it now. We have to wait until the first public hearing.
So do we have 2 meetings where we can actually discuss the budget, which one here and not be here?
We have the 5th and the 19th, and then we have the September, which falls on a Tuesday.
September 3rd. So it's actually the 19th of August and September 3rd that we would have all 5 commissioners.
And if we set another meeting, say the 26th.
We need to check with commissioners.
Yeah, we could tentatively set that. We don't have to, we can put that in the book, but we don't have to advertise it until we get closer and see if we need that.
Can I hear a motion?
I move to set another hearing date for the Monday, the 26th of August, 2019 on these premises.
At the
The budget workshop.
yeah.
Okay.
Budget workshop.
Budget workshop.
Is there a second?
Second.
26. What time is it?
5:15?
Could we do it a little bit later? Maybe 5:30. I heard no G's.
Okay. You want to amend that to make it 5:30?
Yeah.
So the amended motion is for another budget hearing on August 26th at 5:30. And it's been seconded by Mr. Rollins. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, like sign. Thank you. That's all I have. Future agenda?
I have just one more. I forgot to bring this up. I had Brianne put in your packet there, email that we got from Ryan Albert, who's the VP of Athletics, regarding the extension of the Glades Road Fields contract, but it's expiring, I think, in 2021, 2 fields, and we were able to get them to agree to a 10-year extension on those fields. There was it wasn't exactly an MOU, but it gave you an idea of what they're looking for in terms of rental fees over the next few years. I want to make sure we talk about that at our next meeting. And secondly, if you're familiar with the FAU varsity field, just to the west of there is a football practice field where the university's football team practice, and there's 2 fields there that they will be vacating in the spring of 2020, and they've already got when they were looking at lighting that before they moved over to the stadium, they already have the lighting plan also. So that may be an option that would help us until which time as we see where phase 2 expenditure is going. So I just want to mention that to you because I almost forgot about sharing that information with you regarding that extra field that we may be able to tag on to for another rental arrangement like we currently have. So just take a look at that so that you can be familiar with it, so we can talk about that. In the meantime, hopefully we'll have an actual agreement from the university that we can talk to. That'd be a good idea if you have problems with that, to see if we can manage that for the big grant.
One more thing. I just want to say I'm a very positive, glass half full type person, and I'm going to continue to try to cultivate a very positive relationship with City Council, and just try to communicate as much as possible. And I just hope that you all will, continue to do the same, so that things don't go downhill; they go uphill.
Well, I will tell you, having been here for as long as I have, it's been like a roller coaster with that relationship. And I'm like you, Aaron. So long as both parties are respecting each other and are transparent in what the objectives are, because we are kind of joined at the hip with our council. And I would hope that the feeling would be mutual. But it hasn't always been that way with the council, but there's no reason why we can't be that way. I agree with you.
Thank you for that. We traditionally try to let the public speak again. Is there anybody interested? So we open up public requests again with a motion. Brianne, future agenda items?
And I would like to be put on the agenda a review of all of our ILAs with the city. And I just want to make a note. I have some very good personal relationships with members of the city council, including Councilman Thompson. I don't think the problem is necessarily with the council members themselves as much as with the information they get. And if we can fix that, I think that'll go a long way toward curing the ills that befall the two organizations.
Thank you, Steve.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Yay.